Hello?
Evening, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. What's up, buddy?
How's it going? First of all, I want to apologize for coming off as a troll. I'm not really trying to do that. It's not it's kind of unprofessional of me. I do apologize, but
Yeah,
I
no
was
problem.
literally just brought that video was just brought to my attention last night, and I finally had a chance to actually go through and look at it. And I kind of wanted to address some of the things that were said because um just in general, it seems kind of like there's a lot of misnomer between what people think of blue collar jobs and the actual the necessity and the demand for said jobs. But
Sure.
again, it's not like I literally just hung up with a friend of mine who big follower of yours. I personally, besides that one video and I think another one that I might have clicked on with another YouTuber, really haven't had any interactions with your content.
This guy
So
is a cuck.
I'm not exactly sure if these positions are just kind of sort of nuanced to that conversation, or if this is something you kind of do believe on a general.
Well, let's talk about the positions that you think I have that you have an issue with.
Sure. Okay. We can do that.
Yeah. So I guess what did I say that triggered you so hard? I guess in that conversation, what did I say that really upset you?
Yeah, the fifis, man, the fifis. So okay, we can jump right into it. So this debate you had with Sargon of Akkad,
Mm-hmm.
um, the when you guys were talking about immigration and economics. So it's that video,
Mm-hmm.
right around the 129 mark, somewhere around in there.
Sure.
Let me backtrack a little bit here. So you had talked about working as a carpet cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah. For a little over a year. Yeah.
Um, while I would agree with you that some jobs that would be considered like middle class, low skill jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, being a guy that working in the assembly line making 7.25 an hour at Amazon, for example,
Mm-hmm.
probably not as noble as what I'm talking about, which is the truckload industry. We'll just keep it as a broad topic, trucking in general.
Sure. Can I real quick before we get too far into this? I don't. If I did, I misspoke, but I don't think I necessarily spoke to the nobility of doing certain work. I mean, I think you should probably be proud of any work you do. I mean, it's your work. It's what you do to survive. I don't think that there's anything that you should be ashamed of doing or anything like that. I don't know if I gave that impression, but
Let me double check because I do have the video queued up.
mm-hmm.
You guys were talking about the nobility of construction, and you had said that it's something that people are forced into, and it's not necessarily a field of nobility, it's a field of necessity because they view it as an out.
Typically when you talk about most kind of I'll say shitty jobs, that's usually the way that I view it. Yeah.
Well, and so, okay, so specifically to my industry,
Mm-hmm.
the trucking industry, it's a shit job. Nobody's gonna deny that.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is. It's a shit job. You're making a lot of social sacrifices, a lot of personal sacrifices. The work life balance is very poor.
Sure.
But economically speaking, you can make some pretty darn good money in the industry.
Sure, but aren't
Especially,
you in
if
that
you're over the road, the average driver working for one of these big Fortune 500 carriers, there's a top 20 list you can easily Google and find out. Swift is the biggest one of them,
mm-hmm.
and that's the one I currently am employed with. My startup, whose account I messaged you through, um, we are looking to be disruptive to the trucking industry in terms of the policies that we incorporate into what makes us a company. But we are using Jerry Moyes's business model that he did when he started Swift in '66. So basically, take one truck buys a second truck, two trucks buy four trucks, and grow exponentially.
Okay.
So, but you look at that guy, you know, middle class kid from suburb of Utah, right? His dad was a truck driver. He then worked with his dad at the same trucking company. Bought his first truck, started making his own money, made his own company, and now the man's worth billions of dollars.
Okay.
So to say that there's no money to be made in professions like that, I mean, I don't
Well,
necessarily know so much about the construction field
well,
itself.
firstly, well, hold on. I mean, like, not everybody, one, is even going to be probably buying their own truck, and not everybody is going to be building their own multi-billion-dollar successful business, right? That's not really fair.
Well, to be fair, if you want to call a spade, so to speak, most truck drivers are company drivers based on experience. They need to build that experience up. But a lot of them do go that own independent owner operator route because they do realize that there is more money to be made brokering your own freight.
Sure.
Number one. And number two, it's not exactly, there's not a lot of input to do that. I mean,
Sure.
you can go online right now and find a truck, a used tractor anywhere between $11,000 and $60,000. A trailer would probably be about the same price range. Let's say between used and brand new, you're probably talking about somewhere between 5 digits and 6 digits. Same thing with a tractor. You want to go to a showroom and buy something brand new, it's probably going to cost you, $100,000.
Okay. So,
But to take something, you don't have to have the most brand spanking new shiny piece of equipment out there to make the money.
mhm.
What you need is it needs to be something dependable and reliable. It's the same thing. Now, it's not okay. Let me step back a second and rephrase. So it's not the same thing. For example, if you wanted to start your own construction company,
Sure, I understand.
because
This is actually really comparable to carpet cleaning, believe it or not, where some guys will buy their own carpet cleaning truck and they'll sell jobs out of their own truck instead of like working for another company and driving their trucks and whatnot. You just have to make that small initial investment into a vehicle, and then you can go out and sell jobs on your own and keep 100% of the margin instead of having to pay an owner or whatever for their equipment, right?
right, and it would be comparable, I would say, in a small sense.
Mm-hmm.
The brokers are usually going to take a fee either up front or per mile,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the revenue stream that we use in this career field. But there's something I wanted to touch on too, real quick. I happen to have the statistics pulled up here. So one of the things that tied into that conversation was the minorities and getting those people into these kind of jobs. The current demographics right now, there's 3.5 million drivers with Class A CDLs,
Mm-hmm.
which is a federal license,
Yep.
right?
The commercial
There's
driver license, yeah.
right. Out of that, 13% are women, which is up from 11% from 2014. These are 2016 statistics, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So as most recent as we can get, right? 28% of them are Black or African American. 14% are Hispanic. 5% were identified as other ethnic background. There's no special advertising. There's no TV. There's no radio. I mean, they do a lot of social media. These bigger companies, they'll do a lot of social media campaigns
Mm-hmm.
to boost their numbers. But that's just because, like any other big corporation, there is a um there is a there's quotas,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's quotas that they have to meet, for their I forget what the word is right now. My girlfriend, she works in recruiting. She works for RPO, which is a outsourcing recruiting company. Does all the stuff for Comcast and waste management and stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
I forget what exactly the term is here, but that's kind of out of my depth of field personally. But the what seriously tickles me is that a lot of people will say that, oh well, there's feminists, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, well, there's a
Hi,
huge
Dad.
pay gap in STEM. But if you're going to look at STEM, which is a highly competitive field, there should be a correlating response to the middle class jobs right? Whether you're talking about skilled labor as far as trades, or you're talking about unskilled labor, there should be some correlating data.
Well,
But
not
what tickle
necessarily, but okay. I mean, there
there,
could be wage discrimination,
no,
and some forms of
I
work on
said
other, but
should. I didn't say would. I didn't say, I said should. There should be. But what tickles me is that if you really did believe in equality, me personally, and this is just a personal opinion, I mean, you could, break it down and disseminate it from there, but me personally, what I see, the women that are in my career field as either as independent owner operators or working for a company or working for a small mom and pop shop, 5 6 trucks, whatever, um they're very happy where they're at. I mean, they're not treated. When you're in the trucking industry, when you're in a truck specifically, you're not seen as a male, a female, a transgender, an African American, a Mexican, a Puerto Rican, or whatever, right? You're seen as a truck number. You're seen as an available truck to move freight and make money, make the owners of that truck money, make the people working that truck money, and making yourself money. So I mean, and it is pretty equal, and I say pretty equal because it does depend on work ethic, and not everybody's work ethic is a shining example of what we all need to be, that's for sure. But on a general size, I mean, you're talking about your average somewhere around 136,000 miles a year. You're making somewhere between, I don't know, if you're starting brand new with zero experience, just fresh out of school, you're talking about maybe 36,000 a year, upwards from there. Like I personally, I'm making 52,000 after taxes. So I mean, it's not exactly. I mean, again, it's a hard job because there's a lot of stuff to take into account. I don't always, I'm not always home. In fact, I'm pretty far away from home most of
sure.
the time.
So just going back to the first thing you said, it seems like you're kind of making my argument for me. In the initial thing you said that you can make okay money being a truck driver, but you have to make immense social sacrifices to do it. Oftentimes, when you're out, you're gone from home at least multiple days, right? If not, like I know that some truck jobs will guarantee you're home like once a week or maybe even a little bit more than that, but you're gone
Well,
pretty
see, and
often,
that's
right?
something, and that is something that I wanted to cover real quick, just kind of cover all the bases here before
Sure.
I moved on to something else.
It
Was
isn't
that
if you could make
if
like the
you
same money doing something that didn't involve so much traveling though, doesn't that make this kind of a job of necessity? Like
No, because it's still a voluntary position. You could join a Teamster union and do local. You could drive for UPS and do local and be home every day
yeah, but I
and make
imagine those jobs are
twice as
probably
much.
way, way, way more competitive, though, right? It's probably a lot harder to get those kinds of jobs now. You probably need more background. They're not going to take somebody fresh out of high school or something, or off the GED to do something like that.
Well, I don't necessarily 100%. I couldn't. I
Well, if that weren't true,
personally,
then everybody would work those jobs, right? Nobody would be a trucker, right?
well, that's not necessarily true either. And this is part of it. Is there is a lot of stigma, especially when it comes to media, about drivers. For example, I'm not sure if you're keeping up with current events. There was an independent owner operator that they're looking for. Um, his truck and trailer were confiscated down there in San Antonio just this past week or 2 weeks, where they found all those illegal immigrants in the trailer. Most of them were already dead, and the ones that were survived or did survive actually did die because of heat exhaustion, extreme heat exhaustion.
Okay, what about it?
But the point is, you hear it's not like it used to be during the 60s and the 70s, right? Especially after deregulation. What you hear now in movies, like Joyride, right? Candy Cane, right? So you got a lot of stigma in media behind truck drivers. That's why you see so many more billboards advertising law advocates, right? That'll take on the trucking company that wrecked your car more than you'll see billboards advertising trucking jobs, honestly. And the thing is that if I didn't see this kind of one-sidedness in the social hierarchy on a daily, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, despite it having come from my own mouth. but it is true, 100%. And the thing of it is there's really not much that we as drivers could do to change it, because it kind of is one of those things that, we are kind of vilified. We're the bullies on the highway, not the friends on the highway. A truck driver will screw you over in a heartbeat rather than, stop and pull over and help you change a tire. And that I think comes down to everybody looking out for um, themselves instead of each other, like it used to be. There kind of used to be this unspoken fraternity, this unspoken bond behind being a driver. And now you have so many new people coming in, especially millennials. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm not. It's the way that these people are being marketed to. It's the way that these jobs are being described and marketed to these young people, that they kind of just don't really get it. And
Gotcha.
that's a shame. It really is, because it is. And it's then that's kind of what, to kind of circle back to your original question. The Fifis were injured, along with kind of some personal dignity, I guess, on a personal level. That this is the kind of, I don't want to use the term wrong think, because I don't necessarily prescribe to that ideology, but it is definitely something that is a problem. Is that if we all think that these jobs are going away more quickly than they actually are, due to automation or advances in technology. For example, like, I'm asked personally all the time, well, why are you starting a trucking company and want to be bigger than Swift if automation's coming and drones are going to be delivering packages and things like that? Well, no, no, no. If drones are going to be, specifically, if you want to talk about that, if drones are going to be disruptive to the industry, they're going to be disruptive to LTL, which is less than truckload. So that's FedEx, UPS, Old Dominion, USPS, those sorts of things, right? You're not going to see a drone stop off at a steel mill, pick up a 50,000 pound steel sheet metal coil, and lift it up, several hundred feet in the air, and then take it 1,200 miles to the border, where it's going to, cross shipping lanes and go into Mexico and be made into parts for cars and be sent back. You're just not going to see that. And you're not going to see it being done on rail either.
Well, what about like an automatically driving truck? Wait, hello? I think a drone just droned his internet connection. Hello? What? Did he, like, do you think he ran out of talking points? What was the point of this conversation? Oh my god. Yo, do you think this baked Alaska guy is actually gonna talk to me?
You finally won a debate. Congratulations.
Did he hang up? No, I think the call got dropped.
I'm just here to watch Destiny stare at the camera silently, Nathan Donk.
Oh. Hello?
Yeah, I do apologize about that. That was a technical difficulty on my end.
Yeah, no problem.
So,
Oh, I think. Oh, so I had asked. Why can't there be self-driving trucks?
well, there. Okay, so Freightliner is what's championing that here in the United States. Volvo is doing it overseas in the UK and the Europe continent.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're both owned by Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, if you will, right? So, Daimler is pushing that agenda full force, but you're still going to need you're still going to need drivers to pilot them through the inner cities. The autonomous part is more or less like an autopilot. It's the same reason why we still have regular pilots and and a first officer driving driving the plane from Chicago to Seattle, for example, even though automation has taken over the majority of that leg.
Gotcha.
And it's not to say that we won't have fully autonomous trucks in the future. Just right now, it's not as pertinent, and it's not as decisive or as immediate as people tend to make it out to be.
Sure.
But see now a big thing is and a question that I get fielded a lot are especially from younger teenagers, ones that are just learning how to drive, because we are as a startup, we do take a kind of a community and investment approach to how we handle our business. And one of the big things is we like to talk to the local schools about how to be safe around trucks and what to watch out for, and how to not piss us off. Basically, one of the big things is getting cut off in traffic. Right, we can't stop on a dime.
Yeah, trucks usually leave extra space between them and the car in front of them, and a lot of people view that as an invitation to hop right in front of them, not realizing that the truck has that space there for extra stopping distance. Sure.
Man, you know what, man, and you pretty much gained my love and support from here on out. I don't really care where this conversation goes.
No,
The fact that you said that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I actually really appreciate truck drivers. It's funny because when you drive, truck drivers are typically the ones that follow the rules of the road the most. They're always passing on the left. They usually move to the right when they're done passing. You give them a little, I know you can give them a little flash of your blinkers or your brights or whatever when they're in front of you, so they've got enough space to move over. I'm pretty aware of trucker dudes on the road. They're usually okay dudes.
Yeah. No, exactly. What we want to see is we want to see a better connection with the civilian population on a whole.
Sure.
Because what we're seeing now is that you will see people that are out there that will if you flash them over and you're in a big rig, you flash them over, they'll put their four ways on to kind of thank you.
Yeah, the little.
And that's and that's something cool. I'm starting to get the arm pumps again, and that's actually pretty cool. Because what I used to hate was being on these long legs, and you're sitting there in traffic for hours, and you're looking down, and you see these trips, these vacationers, right? And they got the minivan all packed up, right? Mom's on her cell phone, dad's on his cell phone, which just pisses me off right then and there. And then the kids got the kids got a tablet or a little, portable DVD player. They're watching something in the backseat. It's like everybody's so immersed with this media culture now that it's very hard. Very seldom do you ever get those arm pumps anymore. But when you do, it's special. You definitely take notice.
Gotcha, sure. I don't disagree with any of this. Wait, so what exactly, to go back to the central point, what exactly did I say to Sargon that you disagreed with so heavily?
Well, actually, now after talking with you now, I kind of lost my own perspective on it. But to be more honest with it, it really comes down to this, right? So one of the big reasons why you don't see these companies, like you, because you guys had actually talked about this, and that's what got the whole disagreement started. Excuse me. I dropped some ash on my keyboard. That's never cool. One of the big things that was said was that well, why is there such a why is there such a disparaging uh, statistic between men in the workforce, women in the workforce, minorities in the workforce? But I guess my question to you would be, if you were looking specifically at Sargon's example, which I kind of want to say is a poor example, but I mean, just to roll with it. If you look at construction, the minority of the people that are working construction are minorities. You don't see the white guy showing plumber's crack anymore. You see, a bunch of my cousins, a bunch of essays, a bunch of cholos.
So I think in general, I think our discussion had more to do with the fact that people are typically trying to move people out of the lower paying, more damaging to your body, blue collar work up to other types of more educated work. I don't know if I necessarily would agree that I know that it's kind of weird. Different people have different definitions of what blue collar means. I don't know if I would necessarily include like high skilled labor. Like I consider like electrician, plumber. I think these guys are trades. I don't know if they necessarily have it as bad as like bricklayers or stonemasons or something or something like that, but typically my criticism of blue collar work wasn't that it wasn't noble. It's just that it's usually very tough work. It usually leaves you with physical disabilities into your 30s. The pay is oftentimes very bad and the benefits are oftentimes non-existent. There is no vacation time, there is no paid sick leave or any of that.
Sure, sure. Okay, so then may I ask a question in response to that then?
Yeah, sure.
What if you're looking at the union jobs, the union trades as trades, what would differentiate a teamster driving a day cab, hauling those doubles that you see probably more often than not, like UPS or FedEx, those guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
In comparison to me, somebody who has a full semi.
What wait, what exactly are you asking me? What the difference
what
is?
would what would differentiate the two? Because that's kind of how the field is already broken down. You have what they would call the skilled trade, which is the teamsters, because you do need to have an aptitude battery in order to become an apprentice as a teamster.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas over OTR drivers, and I'll touch, you know what, I'll save this towards the end. um OTR drivers, people like Swift, Schneider, JB Hunt, CRST, CR England, and those places, um, you don't even need a GED, you know? So would that be considered unskilled versus skilled?
I,
Because one requires a high school diploma upon entry and along with an aptitude test, versus the other one you go to school, you learn the skills, and
Well,
then you become a
I
truck
don't know
driver.
if the distinction is necessarily important in between like skilled and unskilled. I guess just the general argument is that it seems like people in society generally want to move their offspring up into the best jobs possible. And very rarely does it seem like parents want their children to be moving into back-breaking, low-pay, low-benefit labor. Usually they want them to move. Oftentimes it's higher educated. It could also be higher skilled, or it could be some type of parallel field. But oftentimes you don't want your child to be growing up to do, really, really hard labor for, 34,000 a year or something with no chance of promotion and very little opportunity for advancement.
Well, see, and that's something that I could personally attest to, I guess, because my grandfather was the one who pretty much raised me. My grandfather and my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was a Chicago policeman, and my grandmother was a homemaker, and they both told me this age old, piece of advice, this sage wisdom, right? Work with your brain and not with your back. I unfortunately was cursed with a keen knack for academia. So, like, I was pushed heavily into, I always had private tutors. I really didn't have a lot of friends growing up, right? So, by the time I finished college, which was at a pretty young age, mind you, I had gotten an undergraduate degree in a field that was primarily um, full of smart people, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily. I don't want to give too much of my personal story away because I don't. First of all, I don't really feel it's all that relevant. But it was in the social sciences field.
Okay.
Now, what made me become a truck driver was because I was working for a company doing some research stuff, And I had actually, one of the things that we were doing was we were talking with drivers and actually being able to sit down with these people and get to know them on a fundamental level, what kind of person they were. Really kind of opened my eyes to, hey, this actually sounds like a lot of fun. I kind of want to try this out, and I ended up loving it, and so here I sit. I think, like I said, I think it all comes down to, voluntarism. You you choose the job that best fits you and your personality rather than what would make you more money or not. Because if you're just going off of the economic side of things, that's not always going to entitle you to not necessarily a better life in one aspect, but a better life overall. I'm not sure if you would agree with that or not.
No, I definitely agree. It's better to make a little bit less and be happy with what you do than make a lot and be miserable.
I took a 52% pay cut to work here.
Wow.
to be fair. So yeah, I mean, do I miss the money? Sure, because I like to be able to kind of travel on my own and take trips and like Germany and Amsterdam and Jamaica and things like that. But I mean, I can still afford these things. I just have to really watch my spending and put money away and make sure all my bills are covered and whatnot. It's more of a challenge. It's not necessarily impossible. It just makes it a little bit more difficult.
Gotcha. Okay, well, was there anything else you wanted to go over?
Well, one of the other things that you had talked about, I think this was in a different video. If you could clarify for me, what was your position on healthcare?
In the United States, or what do you mean?
Just well, in the United States, we're both U.S. citizens, so let's keep it local.
I mean, what about it? That's a pretty broad question. I mean, what specifically?
Because if I'm not mistaken, your understanding was that we could benefit from a more socialized healthcare industry.
It's possible. The numbers, everything is like really complicated with healthcare in the United States. But yeah, it seems like that's what other countries do to a greater level of success than what we currently do. So it seems like that's the direction we should probably move in.
Because one of the things that we as a company get a lot of flack over is that we've kind of taken these fundamental principles, more or less what we just talked about. Hey, look, this isn't just a job, this is a career. You should be proud of what you do, and this is why. Kind of approach, and we kind of do break it down to people before we actually bring them into an academy and get them their CDLs, and then actually take them out on the road and start training them. So one of the other things that we do, going back to the community and reinvestment part, was we're actually doing a small test experiment right now with a program that employs that actually brings qualified applicants that are displaced. So you're talking basically homeless people that aren't necessarily chronically homeless, right? So you're not talking necessarily about those that have been out on the streets for decades and have large mental faculty issues or chemical dependency issues. You're talking about somebody that lost their job and lost their place and not really able to get themselves back on their feet with whatever low-skilled labor they're able to get, right? These Amazon jobs, these McDonald's jobs, right? So what we've done is we realized that, like, for example, here at Swift, my day job, right? I make roughly about $1,000 a week, and about $120 of that comes out for medical expenses, my health care benefits, my hospitalization insurance, my dental, my vision, my life insurance, all that stuff.
Okay.
What we've done is we decided to say, hey, to make this more affordable, what if we as a company kind of redefined how we define success, right? And let's bring down some of that cost. So let's find private medical providers that'll work with us. We'll pay them cash on demand for preventative care, right? So your annual checkups and whatnot, right? And then what you're actually paying for when you're paying these insurance companies instead, you're just paying the hospitalization, right? So your emergency room is covered. Your if you need to be admitted, your admittance fees are covered. Your hospital stay is covered. Prescriptions are 20/80 split on our 80 on our end, and so on and so forth from there. So if all company, my direct question to you would be, if all companies kind of sort of adopted this a more socialist policy, not necessarily 100%, we're going to eat all these medical costs, right? But if they took a more socialist stance on some of these issues, do you think that some of these jobs might see a pay increase?
Well, wouldn't the job see a pay decrease because you're spending more money on healthcare and stuff from the company?
Not necessarily. I mean, for example, I mean, we're paying the specific program that I'm talking about with us is right now um, is basically borrowing and adopting the United States military's pay schedule, right? So what we do is we sit down with somebody on a case by case basis. They tell us a bit about themselves and how long they've been homeless and whatnot. What we do is we start them off on a base pay salary of about 18,000 a year. Then we actually add local the local rent average for, if they're a single person, it's a single, a studio or a single bedroom. If they have children, then it's obviously a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom, so on and so forth from there. I mean, there's
Sure.
nuances.
But like whatever you pay them now, if you would just axe the healthcare stuff completely, couldn't you just pay that in the form of wages to your employees?
Not necessarily, because you still got to be competitive. Like, for example, if I just said, "Oh, hey, we're eating 100% of your medical costs, but we're only going to pay you, $7 an hour, let's say, right? Let's just keep it an even number, $7 an hour." But if they went to another company in the same job that would train them, right? They could make $13 to $14 an hour. But out of that would come their own personal medical expenses. I mean, you would have to be an asinine person with some really foolhardy intentions to pass that up.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Let's say that you're offering 13 an hour and you cover, so many medical benefits for people. Let's say that you didn't cover the medical benefits. Couldn't you pay them 14 or 15 an hour instead?
Well, again, not necessarily, because then we would be considering, excuse me, overpaying. Because the average industry, let's say for a dispatcher, right, an office job, a dispatcher for a trucking company in the Northwest, the Midwest, right? So like we're based out of Wisconsin, so the average dispatcher in that area would be roughly about 13.25 an hour. So if we start paying them $15 an hour, then we're overpaying. I mean, we want to be competitive, sure, but we don't necessarily want to be overpaying either, because then we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Gotcha.
I mean, you still have to look at what labor is affordable and what the labor is actually worth. You can't. I mean, like our company's name is sua sponte. It's Latin. It means of our own accord, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we get to do whatever we want for no apparent good reason.
Sure. I mean, I guess to answer your question on if every company did that, it sounds like it would be okay. One, I don't know how comfortable I am with the idea of your healthcare being tied to your work. That makes me really uncomfortable. But two, it doesn't seem like this is going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. It seems like there's been years and years and years for companies to do this, but they haven't done it. So it doesn't seem like that's going to be something that companies are interested in doing.
Well, honestly, I don't think it's a discussion that's being had, and I think that's part of the problem.
Well, healthcare's been a pretty active discussion in the country for the past 2 decades, I would say. We've been talking about healthcare quite a bit.
I'm talking about that specific option. You are starting to see some companies here and there doing a health savings plan, but that's not quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
That really isn't the same, and to equate it as such would be intellectually dishonest, I feel.
Yeah, of course. The FSA, the flex spending accounts, and the health savings plans are not a substitute for insurance. I agree with that, of course.
So, I mean, but on a national level, right? I mean, let's look at again. Let's look at industry specific statistics, right? So trucking does have 3.5 million people in its industry, but we're still about 50,000 drivers short, and that's every year. We're about between 50 to 70,000 drivers short. It always fluctuates.
Mm-hmm.
So the demand is always gonna be there to have more people come in. If you look at the average person that goes through some of these local assistance programs, soup kitchens and emergency shelters and things like that, if you take all those statistics, it averages out to about 556,000 as of 2016, I believe. Um, and then if you break that down into take all those people and then you take the basically the 1%, which is about what the average would be for somebody to actually be qualified by the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, who does all of our background checks on an industry-wide level. Specifically because it is very easy, has been demonstrated with history's past, to turn any kind of truck basically into a bomb, or do something else that's illegal, like the example I gave earlier with the independent driver that had all those people in the back of his trailer
Mm-hmm.
doing human trafficking stuff. So we as an industry really do kind of we don't necessarily want to be more lax on our background checks necessarily, but to say that, hey, roughly about 1% of all those people would qualify to get into a trucking school, right?
Okay.
So you're basically taking 1% of 556,000, which would be roughly about what, 55,000. Ten
Sure.
percent, 10% would be 55,000. So 1% of that would be 5,600.
Maybe 5,500. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Um, my brain's kind of fried. It's the end of my shift, so.
What are you
But
driving right now?
no,
Oh,
no. I'm done driving for the day.
gotcha.
Um, so you got to understand. So you got you got room to play with there. You got another 5,000 people that haven't been even approached, as if to say, hey, we want to recruit you for this career field that'll definitely get you out of your situation you're in, especially if you're a single individual who's been displaced, because your house is basically no more than a foot away from where you work, so to speak.
Sure.
I mean, the federal regulations, US DOT does say that you need to have a current address that's up to date in order for you to maintain your CDL. And that's basically for citations, for records and things like that. Kind of keep track of where you're at, right?
Sure.
In layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
So, but still, I mean, how hard is it to go approach a family member and say, "Hey, I have this job. It's going to make me some pretty decent money. It's going to help me in my immediate position, and then I can always go back and reapproach the idea of going back to school or doing whatever it is after that." So, but I need an address. Can I use your mailbox to send my stuff to? I'm pretty sure a family member's not going to object. They might say no to you staying there, right, and doing the whole couch surfing thing, but they're definitely not going to object for you using the address as a job. At least if they did, it would have to be on some fundamental level. Like you probably pissed them off something beyond repair at that point, I think.
Sure.
But no, so basically again, I didn't mean to come off as somebody that was trying to troll you or anything. I honestly don't. Like I said before, I don't really know that much about you to try to do that anyway. And I always hated those kind of people anyhow, because I get them a lot in my inbox. So I'm pretty sure that's how I came off. And I do apologize. It was pretty unprofessional of me. But at the same time, like we just discussed basically, right? So it's just it's this idea, right, that you have these jobs that are looked down upon by some people, not necessarily by you, but by some people, as to say, well, this isn't going to work for me because let's say, for example, and I see this a lot with my personal friends that I have made throughout the years, right? So they go to school for something, they get recruited into doing, like, a lot of my friends went into game design back when that was still a big thing. Um, what are they doing now? Absolutely nothing. They're still living at home and they work at Starbucks or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that was basically you put yourself about 50 or 60,000 in debt for a price tag on a certificate that doesn't work.
Well, but that's not really that fair, right? There's a lot. I mean, the average college degree holder will earn more than the average non-degree holder. You can always find one-off examples of people that do things that don't work out, but in general, people with degrees earn, I think it's 13,000 a year more than people that don't earn degrees.
No, and I would agree with that statistic, and I'm definitely not saying that it's not true because I mean you get like my undergrad, for example, the if I would have paid cash and gotten just a bunch of student loans, I would have had to have paid the $72,000 sticker
Mm-hmm.
price for my undergrad degree from the university I went to, which is a big name university. It's a private institution, and that's a lot of money for somebody that's coming right out of, well, for most people anyway, coming right out of high school that maybe have worked one or two jobs their entire career.
Sure.
But if you look at it from a different perspective and you look at this as something that's a jumping off point, doing a blue collar job not for long term, but just to help you pay those bills off. A lot of them would be full-time jobs, sure, but at the same time, how many degrees are now being offered online that you could take in your spare time and still accomplish what you want to accomplish? I mean, they even have nursing certificates now where all you really have to come in for is to do your hours as far as your internship.
I don't know how many of those online degrees are like legitimate or carry the same weight as like a normal degree. And if you're getting something in nursing, I'm sure you still have to put in physical hours. Like if you're doing a CNA or you're getting or if you want to be an RN especially, like I know that you have to put in physical hours of working at certain places to qualify.
Yeah, well, that's like I said, that's discounting internships, right? So we're just talking about the degree in and of itself, the
Yeah, but like
learning.
even for like, I don't think you could get like a CNA without even a CNA, which is I think only a 2-year program. I don't think you could get that for like a certified nursing assistant. I don't think you could get that without putting in physical hours working at some place.
Well, and even then, they have part-time community colleges and whatnot that'll offer CNA degrees, and you could do that as like a night school alternative.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's not to say that it's, again, it depends on your field of study. Obviously, if you're going in for computer sciences and you want to be, you know, this huge, you want to work, your end-all goal is to work for this huge IT firm, right? You
Mhm.
don't necessarily want to go to an online school to do that, and that's understandable. But again, it comes down to voluntarism. You have to look at all your personal choices and not weigh anything out. And I feel like the blue collar field is kind of sort of being weighted out against more than four, with a lot of people that are peers of mine. I mean, you and I were born roughly about the same time frame, right? So I mean, it's not to say that at the end of the day, you know, no matter what you do, it's still a service and it's still honorable, right? You doing, if you, and I'm not, again, I don't really know that much about you, but I'm assuming you do this full time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would never put you down for that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't to anybody else, of course. I never make fun of people for working a certain type of job.
It's not to say that there's a lot of jobs out there that suck, yeah, but they're not dishonorable. They're not noble.
Sure.
The questions more or less that I had for you at that point were kind of more or less for you to clarify what you and Sargon were talking about, because at the end of the day, that is kind of exactly what it sounded like you were saying. I mean, that might not have been your intended purpose for bringing those things up, but that is kind of what it sounded like you had said.
Sure, it more had to do with just people generally try to move out of this field of work rather than move into it. Was just the general kind of discussion.
Well, and again, like specifically with trucking, is that you do see that you see a lot of people moving into it, and then they'll be here for a couple years, they'll get some experience, and then they'll go work for, they'll go join one of the trade unions, for example, like being a Teamster, where they're going to be home every day. They now have more personal freedoms. They don't have to sacrifice so much because they have that time to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
where they can basically do whatever they want. Now, me, unfortunately for me, I kind of it fell into the romanticism of the career field of my choosing, which was, that's kind of be that vagabond and travel around. But that's mainly just because growing up in the inner city, not necessarily great for me. As far as being a smart kid, because I basically had one of two options. It was either join a gang or um,
Uh-oh. Hello? I think we lost him again. Join a gang or what? They got him. Do you think the gang's got him?
Hey buddy, can I come on next to advertise my new startup?
No, fuck you.
this
Oh,
truck stop Wi-Fi, man. I swear.
oh, it's all good.
So, but there was something else I kind of wanted to ask you in terms of your position on what you guys had talked about was, what do you think about in terms of somebody who doesn't really feel that they have a lot of college prospects? I mean, how would you answer for those people?
I mean, you want the best opportunities available for everybody, right? So, I mean, I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, ideally, you want college to be an option for everybody. That should be probably your first goal, right?
Well, I think college and trade school don't necessarily go hand in hand. I mean, for example, the average truck school can get you in and out within 3 weeks, 180 hours. In fact, the one of the big things that we're against is the governing lobby for trucking, which is the American Trucking Association (ATA). They actually pushed through a law that said some pretty shady stuff going on in it. Basically, what they said is you only need 30 hours of skills and behind the wheel training to get your CDL. But you can't learn anything in 30 hours. I mean, come on, let's be reasonable here.
Sure. I mean, I can't speak to specific trucking standards. I don't know anything about it, but sure.
Well, I mean, it would be like, I mean, could you let's take your previous career or well, job field into account for a second. I mean, could you, if you were training somebody new, I mean, would you be able to possibly show them everything that there was to know about carpet cleaning within 30 hours?
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
but I
basically,
worked for a small business, so it was really shitty. They pretty much had you working after the first week. Typically, what you would do is you would shadow somebody for a while, and then you'd be on your own truck in a week or two. And then if you had questions, you would just have to call somebody to figure it out. But yeah, it was pretty shitty. But it was also like a small business, so I don't know. They weren't like official training procedures or anything. And I don't think you have to get licensed to be a carpet cleaner, or at least I never was licensed for it. So.
No, I don't necessarily think so either. At least I've never heard of that. But I mean, then again, I mean, you would know about it more about it than I would. So, but I mean, I don't know. I think what it was, I think what I'm willing to boil it down to was that, I mean, it wasn't really, because I kind of listened to the whole thing, and then specifically that part that one of my people had referenced. Um, the whole thing kind of just sounded really rushed. I mean, you guys had talked about so much in so little bit of time. I don't really think you guys even really came to an agreement on anything really, and I don't necessarily say that that's because you both disagree. I think it's more or less just because.
No, I think I disagree with pretty much everything Carl says. I think that's a fair summary of my position.
But I mean, I don't know. It still seems like an hour or however long it was. It was an hour, 2 hours that you guys were talking. I mean, it doesn't. The video he posted was 2 hours and 27 minutes. You posted one that was 2 hours and 25 minutes. So, and change. So, I mean, to say that you could cover that many topics in 2 hours and not necessarily, come to some sort of decisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It doesn't really seem like it'd be fair to me. I think honestly, if you're gonna go online and you're gonna take a firm stance with something, I mean, cover one thing at a time and make it an entire video. I mean, that's how I stand on it.
Sure.
I mean, if you're gonna talk about immigration and economics as a pair, then talk about immigration and economics. Don't branch off into other subjects, which is something that, I mean, I've more or less, like, I've been talking with some other YouTubers that I personally follow, and I will kind of be looking at more of your stuff here, just more or less because I'm curious. But and I do appreciate that you taking the time out. But we had this thing going for a while that was hey, we'll offer, if you really do feel about this, we'll actually pony up $300 to donate specifically to your Patreon account to actually sit down and have a discussion about that topic. And it didn't really exactly go over that well. Most everybody thought we were just trolling them, but it did open up some dialogue with some of them, and most of them, what they had said was, and how we handle those discussions is we talk about one topic at a time, and it seems to go a lot better than some of these other debates that you see online. And I'm not necessarily talking about yours specifically.
No, I agree. Having a 2 hour, you can have a 10-hour conversation on immigration or healthcare or any number of issues that people tend to gloss over very quickly. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I do appreciate taking the time out, and you've been a pretty gracious host and everything, and I do appreciate you trying to clarify some of the stuff that had been said. And I think personally, like I said, I think given the opportunity to kind of clarify some of these things that were more or less glossed over and just kind of said as a glancing blow to one another, I think doing it that way is much more confusing.
Sure.
Than just actually being able just to sit down with somebody and kind of hash out one topic at a time. It's refreshing though to see that somebody is out there that actually says no. You know what? You can't just cut off that space between a truck, man. You got to give them some room.
Sure. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys. Like I said, I actually really enjoy truck drivers on the road. I think that for the most part they follow the rules better than most of the other horrible fucking drivers out there, so thanks for the conversation, and I will talk to you some other time maybe.
Yeah, no problem. My line's always open. If you got any questions or anything, feel free.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Alright, one more guy wants to talk. I don't know what it's about. Good luck. Why the fuck not? All right, obesity. You're on, my dude. I don't know what you want to talk about, but here we go. Here you are.
She said she was 18, homie CX.
Hey, hello. You're actually on. It's not the stream. Yep, here you are. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
Oh, how's it going, man? I'm actually a little surprised you actually gave me a call.
Oh, well, here we go. Here I am. What's up? What do you want to talk about today?
So, yeah, I recently actually started watching you a couple days ago, and so I liked your debates specifically.
Okay, cool.
But as I mentioned, we briefly spoke a little bit earlier. I sort of disagreed with you on a lot of the discussions you've had about like white privilege.
Uh-oh, okay.
Yeah, but I did agree with you on like stuff like abortion and transgenderism, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I appreciated how you seemed to be, reasonable and stuff, and you would use like logic and not just random shit.
Yeah, I try my hardest.
So, before I guess we dive into it, I would just want to be curious about what your definition of white privilege would be.
There are probably some benefits. There are most definitely some benefits living in the United States in most areas and most circumstances to being white, is I guess what I would say.
All right. So what my opinion would mainly be is that I think that there are tons and tons of variables for an individual's success in this country, and I think that a lot of times stuff like socioeconomic class gets conflated, and people just automatically assume it's due to race that a certain individual is greater advantage or has a greater advantage in life.
Sure, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that socioeconomic position is probably the most important factor determining your success in life. I do think a lot of people conflate race with socioeconomic sometimes, and I think it's really dishonest to do it. But we do have studies showing very specifically that there are places where you are disadvantaged only for your race. The most famous one that I'll cite, that I've cited several times now, is the idea that if you swap names on a job application to black-sounding names, the person is half as likely to get a call back, with all else equal, the application being exactly the same as the other. So, I mean, stuff like that makes it pretty hard to say that there are no racial inequalities.
I actually was thinking about that a little bit, and obviously I don't have any like research or anything to back up, and mainly, unfortunately, because of my job, I don't have time to read a lot of primary sources, so a lot of my information comes from secondary sources.
Okay.
But I was thinking sort of along the lines of, I don't know if it's necessarily because of their names are sounding like African American, or if names just sound unusual. So like, for example, a really redneck sounding name might be less likely to be hired for a job than like John or Chris, if that makes sense.
Okay, but I mean, I guess that's still a problem, but you're saying that wouldn't count as racism, I guess?
I'm not saying it's I don't think it's purely based on race. I think it might be sort of like, my major point is that like, if you have a name that is easily associated with a negative stereotype, no matter what your race is, that might affect how an employer might see you.
Okay, but if all of those names are associated with our black names, don't you think that might be a problem?
But again, all right, I hate to use anecdotes, but I have a friend whose name is Branch, and he is from Georgia.
Okay.
He has a very tough time finding jobs. And I mean, I know this is just one example, but I mean, of course I can't really cite anything, so I might have to concede that this is a potential sort of issue, but a specific one that I wanted to talk to you about is how you mentioned crack and powder cocaine.
Oh, sure, yeah, that the conviction penalties are so much harsher for one than the other, yeah.
Well, I thought that was really interesting, so I decided to like look it up, and it took me to this I went on this and checked out this website called AmericanAddictionCenters.org, and I learned about how like a reason that potentially might be so is because crack and powder cocaine are extremely different in sort of which one is more psychologically addicting and which one is like more easily distributed. So do you think it's possible that there might be a sentencing disparity, not because black people use crack more than powder, but because they are different drugs with different effects?
It's really hard for me to say that when marijuana is still a Schedule 1 drug. It seems like our policing of drugs is a very political thing based very loosely on any type of medical science.
But then if you look at like a drug like crystal meth, which is predominantly used by white people, that is much more and is very similar in how addictive it is to crack cocaine. Those are very similar. So that sort of it leads for me to not think that type of sentencing is because of race, if that makes sense.
Okay. Is there any other okay, I guess I guess so one of the three things I guess I'll kind of go to this because I have to bring this up during the voter ID thing. So there are three things to look at when you determining like the racistness or the amount of how racist like a law is, I guess. I'm sorry. So you have the intent of the law, right, which is did the person writing it attempt to target a minority group? You have the letter of the law, which is the actual written, part of the law. Does it mention specific racial groups or try to target them? And then you've got the effect of the law, the third one, right? How does it work in practice, right? And technically, legally, in order to get something struck down as racist, you only have to prove the third for it to be struck down, that the effect is that it actually disproportionately impacts like a group of people, right?
Yeah, I believe it's called like strict scrutiny or whatever.
So, yeah, so I don't know any of the legal terms. But so like when you look at the way that some of these things play out, right? And you have like you can only give so many explanations, like, well, maybe crack cocaine is more addictive than powder cocaine. Maybe black people's names just sound weird compared to white people's names. Like, regardless of the reason, maybe there is no intent. Maybe there is. Maybe there's not a letter of the law ruling against them. Maybe it is. The fact of the matter at the end of the day is that black people kind of get fucked a little bit on these issues more than white people, which is kind of where my white privilege thing came from.
Well, this is the sort of way that the discussion always goes. And my issue with this is that people always seem to assume when I'm having this discussion that if there's any sort of like disparity in the outcome, that it must be because there is not equal opportunity. You know what I mean? So this sort of goes into socioeconomic reasons about crime rates and stuff like that. And people automatically assume that like if black people are committing more crimes, that must be because there's some sort of injustice going on that is making them commit said crimes.
Well, I think that in general, I don't think that people care necessarily about whether or not that is true. It's more so the idea that it is happening, so something has to stop it from happening, if that makes sense. Like, if you've got a scenario set up where 95% of black people are affected by something and 1% of white people are affected by something, then you have to change something, or whether it's because somebody's being racist or not or anything. I think that you have to find a way to disrupt whatever's going on, right?
Well, but like what I'm saying is that if a certain amount of people are actually doing a certain thing, then it doesn't actually, like, if a certain group is disproportionately doing something, then it doesn't matter if they are getting punished disproportionately.
Yeah, I guess, but then you would have to ask, why are they disproportionately doing that thing?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. It goes into you're automatically assuming because there is a disparity in outcome that there must be an injustice that is making that disparity happen.
Yeah, I mean, what else? Unless you believe in genetic differences between groups of people.
No, that's that's not at all. I'm saying, well, and I know that you're gonna want to punch me.
Well, no, I won't. But go ahead.
All right. I work in the district attorney's office in my city.
Okay.
And a lot of what I see is that there is not specifically in black communities, but in a lot of impoverished communities, there is a really bad culture. And
I don't disagree with this at all. I don't, and you can be more specific and say that black culture is pretty fucking toxic insofar as how it approaches society. I don't disagree with that.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily want to say black.
Sure, no, but you can say that's fine. I agree with that. right? But again, then you have to take like again, we can look at something like rap, okay, right? Look at something like rap because that's a good distillation sometimes of some of the things going on in Black culture, right? In rap, especially like 80s, 90s, you've got a lot of like fuck the police, cops are pigs, blah 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 blah, and all of this shit, right? And it's easy to look at that, right? But the problem with these issues is you always have to dig a level or 10 deeper, right? When you look at when you look at like, well, why is Black culture so anti-cop, anti-police? Well, okay, well, rap is really anti-cop. Why is rap so anti-police and anti-cop? Well, because a lot of these early people that were writing these raps were literally...
I understand that is founded in racism.
Yeah, we're speaking of their experiences of being fucked by the legal system.
Yes, sure. In this country, there has been I don't think any moron is going to deny that like racism has existed in this country, but I don't think that it exists at all to the same level now, and I don't think that necessarily like if society isn't still racist, but a certain group of people is not getting screwed over, but they're acting like they are. I don't think that it is necessarily our responsibility to like pay reparations or something like that.
So you said you were kind of new to my stuff, I guess. I'm not like a huge SJW. Like I won't sit here and lie to you or like play like any of the normal like bullshit liberal cards. Like the level of racism that exists today in society is as a pittance compared to what it existed, even in the 60s, right? It's not even remotely similar. I definitely don't agree. I definitely don't disagree with that notion. And anybody that argues the opposite is living in fucking fantasy land. Okay, having a microaggression because Jordan Peterson said something about Black people online is way fucking different than I'm not allowed to go to this school because it's white people only, right? I definitely don't disagree with that, right? So the level of racism that exists today is far several orders of magnitude lesser than it was, a long time ago, right? We know this is a fact. The problem that we have to look at then, right? Because then the next question is, well, why haven't Blacks caught up to white people, right? Is essentially the question then, right? If racism is more or less, severely reduced, why haven't you seen the closing in the gaps between Black people attainment and education, between the way Black people are treated in the criminal justice system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Well, the problem is that a lot of the successes that you experience in life, a lot of those are carried over from previous successes that other family members have experienced. Things like generational wealth are very, very real things, that if your family is wealthy, your children are much more likely to be wealthy, that the quintile of economic success you belong to is heavily tied into your parents and whatnot, right? So the problem is that you just have to be aware of the fact that if your grandmother lived under Jim Crow, if your grandparents were literally part of legalized segregation, it's still going to have a pretty big impact on your life today, right? And that has to be overcome somehow.
I completely agree with what you're saying, but like a sort of an interesting thing to think about when we're looking at it through that lens is when you look at the Asian community. And I think you can't deny that Asian people have definitely been discriminated against in this country. So, like Japanese people, for example, were put in internment camps. Yeah, and yet Asians have the highest median income.
I can kind of deny that. So it sounds really shitty, and it is true that Asians have experienced some things that have fucked with them in American history. But I think that Asians are a very particular group that you have to be careful when you treat them a certain way, and even Hispanics are, right? You have to look at the background of why different people are in the United States, right? So why are Black people in the United States? Black people are in the United States because literally their ancestors were brought over, they were forced into slavery, and that's been their history here for 200 years. That's like why Black people in the United States, right? Why are Asians in the United States? Well, a lot of them are here literally because they had the financial or educational success in other countries to study and work and come over here, right? That's a huge selection bias. Like, we're not getting, like random, to be mean, I'm not getting like a random dumb fuck Chinese dude who fucked everything up in life moving to the United States. No, of course not, right? Why are Chinese people so fucking successful in the U.S.? Well, a lot of them are parents who literally brought their kids over for educational attainment and shit. You're already selecting from like the highest tiers of society, and this is even like and you can point to other Black groups as well, right? You're not gonna find like ghettos of Nigerian Americans that are all stupid and shitty and fucking like, no, if you're Nigerian and you're coming over to the United States, it's probably because you're already doing really well either educationally or financially or whatever in your own country before coming over here, and even Hispanics to some extent, if you want to talk about things like work ethic and crime and whatnot, right? Hispanics are all underrepresented in a lot of these areas too. But I mean, why? Because if you're coming over to the United States to work, right, you're probably already selecting for people that are of a certain type of work ethic or aptitude, before they even come over. I think that's something that's really important. Whereas for Black people, you have all of them, You know, there was no selection. Nobody selected for the most educated black person. Nobody selected for the most financially successful black slaves to bring out. You got every single person, and all of them were put through the system. So now we have to deal with all types of black people, not just the most successful ones, like you did with Asian people, for instance. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but then a lot of times when now I sort of, if it's okay with you, like
Yeah.
a lot of the, I would like to move on to like sort of solutions that I've been hearing
Sure.
to these types of problems. And like obviously affirmative action has been a very like sort of hot button issue. And when I've been debating a lot of people, I actually am a fan of affirmative action when it comes to socioeconomic status, because I do believe that if a certain person has had a harder economic life, then they should definitely be seen different than like a rich kid if they have the same grades.
Yeah, maybe, but okay. I don't necessarily
Well,
agree with that, but I'm a little harsher. But go ahead.
Oh, well, what do you think? Why
I think
don't you agree?
I think that affirmative action should be used to disrupt cyclical systems. So if there are groups of people, so here's an example.
Well, I feel like
sorry, go ahead.
socioeconomic class is the most cyclical system there is.
Yeah, sure, but I don't like targeting the ends. Like job quotas and whatnot, I'm not sure if I agree with the efficacy of those so much as
Well, most job quotas,
Uh-huh.
or at least or a lot of job quotas that I know of that I've been hearing about are not exactly as based on like rate or as based on socioeconomic class, but based on race. It's like, oh, we need a black reporter. We need more like black police officers, stuff like that.
Sure.
But
So,
like
wait,
no
so,
one's
like,
like, oh, we
let's-
need a
let's-
white kid from the ghetto.
Yeah, so let's speak to that. Let's speak to that exactly, right? So let's say that you need more black police officers, and you need affirmative action to get more black police officers. So having a quota where 50% of your police force must be black, I don't necessarily like that much. Maybe in some cases it would be needed, but let's say that instead you took that funding and you put it towards training for police officers in college level courses or something and then you made those programs exclusively available to African American youth. Something like that I would be okay with, right? Because you're trying to target the problem at its cause. Let's educate more.
Wait, exclusively available to African American youth?
Sure, it's not, or you could even target it to socioeconomic status. And when I say exclusively available, I mean these would probably be like geographically
Well,
targeted.
Destiny, that's the whole entire point, that it's not about race. It is about socioeconomic class. That's the one privilege that really actually matters.
Well, but not always, right? We've talked at least about one state, and I'm sure you can find others. But sure, but I'll even concede that you can target it to socioeconomic status if you want to as well. But we do see a divide in terms of like races and what socioeconomic groups they belong to, right?
Yeah, but like a lot of the time, a lot of these in a lot of these situations, and I don't want to like bring this up again, but like there was in my AP government class, we learned about how there were these cases in which being black was equivalent to receiving like 200 points on the SAT or something. This was and then like Asian would be like negative 100 or something along those lines. So that's the type of affirmative action that I have just found absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and I can provide arguments in favor of that, or at least one. Although, again, like I said, I'm not as big a fan of those because I would prefer to target them at root causes. So providing some sort of educational programs for people at earlier ages so that they can score well on those tests rather than weighting the tests by race. Would you be okay with something like that?
Well, I think if you really want to establish an equal opportunity, then we just need to like get rid of this retarded public education system we have.
How would we do education then?
Well, as I've heard you mention, it's the way that I don't know if it's the same everywhere in the U.S., but property taxes in a neighborhood determine how much funding like a public school will get, and I think that needs to be changed to sort of a one school district. Like I don't think that funding should be determined by the
that will never happen. I agree with you, but they tried that in Omaha, dude. But rich people get hella fucking mad when you bring that up. I don't think that'll ever happen. I do agree with you.
Well, isn't the point of a democracy that you don't care what the if a few rich people are bitching, shouldn't what's still happening?
No, because unfortunately, the way that our democratic system works is we elect officials, and these officials that are elected rely on campaign funds in order to get elected. So the people with the most money will always have the loudest voices in any political system.
I guess
in our political system.
little young and naive, I guess.
Sure, but I mean, like, you can understand that, right? If some dude is running for re-election and he's got big fucking
Yeah, he needs money.
pockets, yeah, he needs money, and the people that raise the most money are typically the wealthiest people, unless you're getting like, I guess, like unions behind you or whatever, like. But in my city, I don't know where you live. I live in Omaha, but they tried that. I think it was called like one school, one district or something. Like they tried to push that, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say white, but like rich people got hella fucking mad, and that was never going to pass in Omaha. That was like fucking career suicide. It was the quickest way to lose support for any election shit from any of the wealthier districts, who are the ones that you need to fundraise with the most. So,
But yeah, but I just, in my opinion, that's like one of the primary ways to sort of fix the whole equal opportunity thing. And then
yeah, sure.
and then
Because
if,
education is supposed to be about equal opportunity, not about if you're
Exactly.
wealthy, you're better off than somebody that's not wealthy. That's like the opposite of what education was supposed to be. Yeah.
And then if that is fixed and there are still disparities, I think that they can be more easily just focused on cultural issues instead of
Mhm.
just pure racism, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I think that, like, I would hope that black culture, quote unquote, culture problems would probably fix itself as black people do better and better in the United States, right? Like,
Man,
even
I
like,
don't know if you follow the news, but it does not look like anything is fixing. It just, I feel like in the recent past couple years, it has just been getting worse and worse with all of, and
I
I
don't
don't
think
necessarily blame it,
so. Like, if
but
we just look at something, so like maybe this sounds kind of, but like if you just look at something like, and I really shouldn't talk about this, 'cause I don't listen to a lot of rap, but like gangster rap and all that shit used to be a lot more fucking commonplace, whereas rap as an art form has evolved into a lot more deeper shit, where black people still talk about issues, but it's not necessarily in the same way, or not necessarily as fucked as it used to be, I guess, a long time ago. That's just looking at, I guess, at one facet of black culture, but I don't know. I think that even black people would acknowledge that their position in the United States has gotten a lot better over the past 20 or 30 years, no?
like I agree, but with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like has just created a massive sort of wave of like mistrust and hatred for like the government in a sense, and that's sort of the type of cultural ideas that I do not think are the right way to success, if that makes sense.
Sure, but even Black Lives Matter is in response to some pretty fucked up shit. Like
I that's yeah I'm hmm.
the cops and black people, that's some shit that has to get figured out, man. There's too many, there's just, and I don't like to do the anecdotal thing, but damn, there's too many fucking videos of like random PhD college black student gets pulled out of his car and beat up by like 6 fucking cops for like no reason. Like, ugh, that shit, like, that leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
I have not seen anything like that.
Wait, really?
But,
Because I can send you like a video, like right now. There was I'm pretty sure
the most recent one I saw was about that dude who got shot while his girlfriend was sitting next to him by the Hispanic.
Oh, that
cop
was
guy.
actually, that was an older one. But it just recently came back in the news because I think it was the chest cam came out or whatever. Oh, here, I'm sending you a link real quick or whatever. I think this was somewhat recent. I want to say this happened within the past 12 months. But this guy, look, this kid does everything right. So first of all, I think he's literally getting pulled over because he's black. He matches the description of somebody driving a stolen car or something. So he gets pulled over. And he does like the most, like, you can just skip to like 30 seconds or whatever, right? He like,
All right, let me check it out.
Yeah, they turn their lights on. He gets out of the car. He's got his hands up. This kid is like 20 some years old, like little kid, hands up.
All right, yeah, that's pretty retarded.
Yeah, like, and this, like, and you can only see like so many videos of this before it's like, fuck, dude. Or what about, who was the black? This was a long time ago. This is like Obama era shit. But like, who was the black guy who somebody called their neighbors, or his neighbors called the cops on him because they thought he was breaking into his own house, and the cops showed up and like ended up shooting him or some shit? Or did they arrest him for breaking into his own house?
All right, but here's the thing about this whole. I do not think that
Oh, Henry Louis Gates.
a lot of what people have been saying in response to these things is that they need less police in these sort of neighborhoods so that these situations happen less. I don't know if that's your position or that's just what I've heard.
I mean, if people are saying that, that's pretty retarded, but
Because I like at least in my city, like I fucking see a shooting like every single day, and if the or I don't like saying black communities, but
No,
if
you can
these
say black community,
impoverished
dude. You're not gonna trigger me. Don't worry. Go ahead. The black
All right.
community. It is a black community problem, right? We'll be
Yes.
very frank. Yeah. So go ahead.
Like I think that what needs to be most like law and order are key to success in communities, and if you have more law and order in a community, I think it's going to be more success because there will be
Well,
less room
I
for
don't.
crime.
So
Which
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true at all. Like for instance, if you go to like really wealthy neighborhoods and like if you go to like San Francisco or wealthier parts of San Francisco or whatever, or wealthier parts of like any state, those places don't have law and order because there's tons of policemen keeping the law and order, right? They've got law and order because they've got good schools, because there are good families, because the kids are in school all day long, because they go to college, because they get good jobs, they've got good job opportunities. Like I think that if you do that kind of stuff, I think that like the law and order just kind of naturally follows, you know?
yeah, but do you not think do you not think that like if there are more police available to like enforce the law, fewer people will break the law?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's how.
Like
I don't think that's how it
I don't think a
works.
guy is gonna shoot. I don't know about it. Like not many guys are gonna shoot another guy in front of a cop.
Well, but you can't realistically have a cop standing on every street corner. And I mean, there are people that get into shootouts
Obviously,
with
but
cops.
you can have an increased presence.
I mean,
And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
like you could, like these are possibilities, but like going through this much effort, like I would rather just fix the communities. That would be my goal, is to find
well,
ways.
obviously, yes, I obviously agree with that.
Yeah, but because
With
I
the
just
whole
don't,
education
like
system
I
and
don't
stuff like
disagree.
that.
There might be some mythical level of spending that you could get on law enforcement to make to make neighborhoods quote unquote safer, but I don't think it's realistic. That level of spending is probably an order of magnitude higher than what we spend right now. Like you're talking about way. Because even in like some of the most heavily policed areas, I don't know where you live, LADC, Baltimore, some shit like these places still have.
I'm from Philly.
Okay. So these places still have a fuck ton of crime, even though you have a fuck ton of officers, right? Like
Yeah.
So it seems like something else has to change. Like it's better to combat the problem from the root. Like get people in schools. Don't fuck people that have been to jail so fucking hard, right? Like if you've been to jail, you're like fucked, right? It seems. Like,
Right. Well, I would definitely.
Yeah, like
agree with
recidivism
that.
is really fucking high. If you've been to jail once, the chances of going back are really high. It's like 3 times higher if you're black. Having a felony or whatever on your fucking record like fucks you for job prospects. Like there are people that get caught up in these systems that are pretty much stuck there forever. Like that's their only that's all they know. You know. Like,
So do you think that the reason that these recidivism rates are so high is just because there's a lack of opportunity out of once you are released from prison?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if I think of like my growing up as like a nice little happy white kid, like I couldn't even imagine selling drugs or anybody around me, because why would I? I've got like a million other things I can do. I mean, for school, I've got tons of extracurriculars. I've got video games my parents buy me. I've got friends to play with and shit. I don't know anybody that fucking sells drugs or anything. I mean, everybody knows a dude that sells weed or whatever, but nothing like crazy hard and nothing like crazy in the game or whatever in my little fucking white neighborhood and shit. And like when I get out of school, why the fuck would I risk getting arrested and selling drugs when I can go to college, when I can get any level of 50 million different types of jobs that will all pay better and be safer than being a fucking drug dealer and won't get me shot or knocked out by the police, you know? Like,
Well, don't you think that the individual, like even in the public school system that we have today, don't you think the individual could look at that and be like, you know what, if I actually like work hard, then I can actually like get a real job instead of committing crime?
I think that individuals are really weak-minded in general. I think that every individual, I think that I don't think that people are capable, or I'm sorry, I think that it takes an extraordinary person to rise above their circumstances to achieve something that wouldn't be otherwise expected of them. So there are people that can do it, but I don't think it's realistic to expect that everybody can do it. Does that make sense?
Let me think about that.
So like I can give a personal example, okay? Like
Right.
I wouldn't, so if somebody was carpet cleaning and that was their job, right? I wouldn't tell that person like, dude, just find something that you're really good at. I believe in you, and then you can quit carpet cleaning and never go to school and find something that'll make you a fuck ton of money, like what I do, right? I don't think that's very realistic. You know, I'm able to do what I'm able to do because of a pretty special set of circumstances, and to expect every single carpet cleaner or every person in the United States to not be able to go to school and to make the kind of living that I do doing the job that I do that's not a very realistic that's not a realistic way to approach things, right? That's probably not going to happen. Or like to be the fastest runner, or like if you're born in some random fucking goat village in Austria or some shit, just start lifting weights and maybe you can go to the United States and be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like I don't think that's like a reasonable assumption to place on most people,
But then, like, I feel like if we're gonna make that argument, like, how is the culture ever gonna really change?
Well, I think I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. Like I feel like if black people's position in America changes, I feel like the culture change will kind of follow it, and culture can kind of lead it a little bit as well. Like I said,
but how is their position gonna change?
I mean, that's a really, 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 really difficult question. I mean, it's a multi-pronged approach. Like the problem, like society is hard. Like these aren't like, it's not like physics or engineering, right? Where we can like, okay, well let's just modify 1 or 2 variables and then we know exactly how to change. Like, yeah, shit is really fucking hard. I don't have like the silver bullet best answer. I wish I did, but I mean, it would take a multi-pronged approach that addresses like every facet of society. Like birth control, right? Starting at the very beginning, like birth control and contraception should probably be freely available to every single socioeconomically underprivileged person, because and even our buddy Ben Shapiro agrees on this. Having children before you've gone to fucking college, having children out of wedlock is a fucking disaster. It's horrible. So contraception and shit has to be freely available. It just has to. I'll pay for that. I don't mind my taxes getting raised because these people end up being a burden on the welfare system.
In my city, it is freely available.
Okay, sure. So it has to be freely available. You have to make sure that people are aware that it exists, right? There has to be adequate funding for public schools to be able to perform like their basic functions.
But here's the thing about the adequate funding, and I realize I'm sort of flip-flopping about what I said earlier, but if a kid like doesn't go to school, it doesn't really matter if his school improves if he just isn't going to go in the first place.
Sure. No, and that's true. Like
so the cycle is just going to continue even if the school just improves by itself.
Sure. So again, like we're trying to knock up these kinds of we're trying to disrupt these types of cyclical behaviors, right? So when you talk about a child not going to school, you're really talking about a fucked up family, right? And if the family's fucked, I mean, the school can be as good as you want it to be, but a fucked up family is still going to hurt things, right? So these are why things like contraception and family planning are so important, in my opinion, getting that right. In terms of fixing families that already exist, fuck, dude, that's really, really, really fucking hard. Maybe
and this is sort of what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Like the fact is that no matter, I feel like, and I don't know if obviously I don't know if it's true, it's all speculation, but I feel like no matter what you change, the only people that are really going to be able to come out of these like really impoverished neighborhoods are going to be those incredible individuals that we were talking about earlier.
Wait, I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Like, you know how we were talking about how like I was like, oh, if you work really hard and go to school every day, try and graduate, you get a real job. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned how that was like, oh, that's just like one incredible guy. Oh, so sure, I think like no matter what we change, I feel like that might still just be that one incredible guy. So that might be pessimistic.
Well, I mean, there will still be the need for incredible people, sure, but like you can reduce that. Like maybe the welfare structures could be made a little bit differently. Like I've heard of I think the what is it called? The earned income credit is a decent idea, right? Where you get paid a tax rebate based on work that you already do. Maybe different ways of structuring welfare benefits could be done a little bit better to incentivize work. Like the solution to a problem as complicated as this is going to be highly multifaceted. Right? There is no silver bullet. There is no one policy or one change that you can enact that will fix, like Black America. Like that's going to be like a highly multivariable thing that will address like multiple stages in multiple people's lives across multiple socioeconomic groups. Because even ensuring the success of people in higher socioeconomic groups is really important. Like I don't have a study offhand, but like I would bet my life on it that Barack Obama, being the president of the United States, surely served as an inspiration to at least some Black people in the United States, right? Seeing him in a position like that's got to be like an awesome fucking feeling. And I'm sure you could say the same for very successful Black people across any field, in engineering and in any kind of science or technology field. Like so even ensuring the success of those people is probably important to the overall success of people in Black America and for culture changes and whatnot. But yeah,
this is where I think that it's not about it's not inherently, when people struggle in this country, I don't think it's inherently because of their race. And that
not always. It's just like there are just so many fucking things. Race can play
That's
a part
what I was
in
saying.
it, but
there's so many variables. Mm-hmm. I think race is an extremely minor one.
I don't want to agree with you, but I'm kind of inclined to agree with you. Like, I would rather, let me put it this way, you're better off being born as a very wealthy black American than as a pretty poor white American. Like, I think that most.
No, and I would
right?
even go as far to say that I think that if you or I instantly became black right now, I don't think we would be any worse off.
So, this is kind of true, but the problem is that you are an amalgamation of your experiences, right? So I can do like a boy-girl thing here, right? So let's say that you've got a guy that's going into an engineering field and you've got a girl that's going into an engineering field, right? For the guy to go into that engineering field, right, maybe you decided at a young age that you wanted to get into biology, and then your parents kind of encourage you, everybody around you kind of encourages you, and then you grow up and you want to be a biologist, and now you're standing in front of the fucking school about to go and take your entrance exam or your aptitude test or whatever you need, your SAT or whatever, or we'll say an entrance exam or whatever, to get into a college to be a biologist, right? Now, let's say we take that same person and we just make them a girl to see if it makes it better or worse, right? Well, you can't just make them a girl because the experiences of a girl getting there are going to be far different generally, right? Like, a girl might start off early in life, I want to be a biologist, and then get told that that's not really a job for women. Maybe she should be like a nurse or something instead. But she decides to push through it, and without as much support from her family or friends, she decides to go through with it anyway. Maybe there aren't as many people, you know, all the house figures in society are all men, so she doesn't really have the popular figures to look up to as much. All of her professors and everything are men, and they aren't necessarily thrilled with a girl wanting to do that. Most of the people in society are telling her that you're right. So when these two people arrive at the gates to do the entrance exam, even though they're both in the quote-unquote same position, they haven't really had the same life experiences to get them to that position. And I'm not making an argument for affirmative action. I'm just saying that it's not really the same as like just saying like flip a switch and now, you know, make them a woman and it would be the same. Well, sure, but it's the experiences that you have in life are typically the things that weigh on you the most, not what you are at any particular moment in time, right?
All right, let me amend the statement then.
Yeah, sure.
I think that if I was born, if my parents had the same exact jobs and I was born, except we were all born black, I do not think that I'd be any worse off.
So like it's possible, but that's a really fucking hard statement to make.
Just because based off of all of the like black people in my community or like friends that I have, they do not seem like, I mean, like, I'm just being honest, they were perfectly fine.
Sure.
And even better than me in like certain ways.
Yeah,
you know?
and if you're born into a good socioeconomic status, that might be fine, but there might be like
well, even middle class. I would even middle class.
Well, but middle class is way better than shitty part of Philadelphia or shitty part of like Oakland or shitty part of, you know, DC, right? These are middle class is like really is like fucking worlds ahead of these places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then doesn't that just indicate even more how it's just all it's like so much about socioeconomic class and like minorly about race, like minutely.
No, sure. I'm not disagreeing with you here, right? I'm not going to disagree with the idea that that socioeconomic status is more important than race. I'm never going to disagree with that because I think that socioeconomic status is probably worldwide is the most important single determining factor of you know, anything.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that race can have an impact, even in higher socioeconomic classes, that race could have an impact in other ways that maybe you don't necessarily realize.
Well, I think with certain like affirmative action policies and when it comes to higher, I don't think that it could possibly be negative when it comes to a higher sort of income bracket. I think if you're black and with a high income, you're always going to get more benefits.
Insofar in what for like job related stuff or
yeah, like professionally.
Yeah. It's just kind of, it's weird the way that works. Like that is technically true, but generally that's usually because the black person has gone through, because of socioeconomic status, more fucked up shit than the white person has gone through generally.
Except that's not the sort of stuff that you're seeing. It's like it's just like you want them like I have some very annoying like sort of libtard friends. And what they always assume is like, oh, I would not go to a college if I went there and like I saw mostly white people and only a couple black people, because people automatically assume if you are black, then you like must be like a different type of person than they are. When I think that like diversity of ideas is like significant when it comes. I guess we're moving on to diversity a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity of ideas is like should be way more important than diversity of skin color. Like, it's a completely subjective, or my bad, wrong word. It's just a completely useless sort of way to
Measurement.
value something.
Maybe. I don't necessarily strongly disagree. I guess like I think that like the point of like a like super agreement that I think that we would be on is like I think that socioeconomic status should be targeted a lot more in the United States than race. And I think that race problems would get fixed by way of that, and we would avoid some of the weird shit. I wish I had this study on hand. Somebody posted it on Reddit a long time ago, but there were actually examples of there were actually examples of different types of affirmative action programs in schools where the primary benefactors of these were all like middle class black men. It was like really insane. But it basically went on to where like certain affirmative action things were literally just being utilized by people that probably didn't even need them at all.
That's exactly the issues that's like the primary issue I have with this sort of racial affirmative action.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't think any reasonable person should be opposed to that. That affirmative action program should probably just focus on socioeconomic status. Like it'll still mostly help black people because most of them tend to be socioeconomically disadvantaged. But then we get rid of the weird baggage or the weird one-offs where you get like, you know, wealthy black people taking advantage of certain socioeconomic or certain affirmative action programs, or like very broke or poor white people not having access to them as well, right?
Yeah. Well, you're surprising me a little bit, Destiny. I sort of had the impression that you were like sort of a social justice warrior.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. Up until like 3 years ago, I actually used to be very, very, very right leaning. So like economically, I'm still like at heart, I'm pretty libertarian-esque. Although that's been tempered a lot. Yeah. Although that's been tempered a lot.
I thought you hated Ben Shapiro. I feel like all you do is agree with him.
So the problem with people like Ben Shapiro is that what these guys do is they and I hate to say this because I don't have the educational background, but it seems like they take like very surface level understandings of topics and then they try to extrapolate that. Like basically they take like what they've done from like an Econ 101 class, and this feels stupid to say because Ben Shapiro graduated, I think cum laude or whatever, of like Harvard fucking law. But they'll take like these really surface level ideas and then they try to extrapolate that to how everything works. And that really bothers me. It bothers me when people can't see outside of their own experiences to understand that other people's might be very valuable. So like, here's a really good example of this, right? Have you seen the video? I'm sure if you're a Shapiro fan, have you seen the one where he talks about, I don't need to be an expert in sociology to read a sociological book,
I did.
right?
I did see that.
So this kind of like, so what do we learn in sociology, right? The study of like large groups of people and how they interact with each other, right? So it's kind of funny to say that this group of, you don't have to be educated to do this, blah, 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 blah. Like, well, gathering data and interpreting polls and doing polls accurately and extrapolating these to groups of people and all that, this is actually a really tough thing to do because psychologically we've got a lot of cognitive biases that work against us, right? And it's extra ironic that Ben Shapiro would do this because have you seen his video on Muslims and how extremist all of the Muslims are?
I actually have not seen that one.
Oh, this is one of his most... it actually might be his most popular video. It's got.
I saw the one on transgender and abortion and...
Sure, so Ben Shapiro has a video with over 2 million views, I think, on how most Muslims are radicalized or something, right? And the way that he cherry picks data for that video is actually embarrassing. Like, if you go through and you look at the very specific questions that he picked, right, it's actually embarrassing. But the funny part about this is that if he had a background in sociology or talked to somebody that worked in sociology, he wouldn't have committed the insane errors that he did when he was putting together this video. So it kind of hurts to see somebody that Ben Shapiro is a smart guy. I would never call him, well, maybe I'd call him an idiot, but I don't think he's like stupid. But the errors, the fallacious errors that he commits sometimes are a little bit extreme, right? Or his unwillingness to look a level deeper, right? So I think,
well, not to call you out, bro, but I've sort of seen you commit a similar crime.
Yeah, go for it. Where?
Like, just yesterday I watched a video where you were debating abortion with this random dude, and he was trying to make the argument that, I'm pretty sure he was trying to make the argument, at least he might have been articulating it poorly, that the reason that it makes sense that we would have abortions be like, I can't remember, be like illegal after before 6 months or something was because scientists said so, and you basically made him look like a giant retard for the next 40 minutes. But that seems to be a similar argument from authority that Ben was sort of having an issue with. And like, because you were saying that scientists shouldn't be the only people to make laws. But doesn't it sort of make sense that if you're a scientist, you would have that prerequisite knowledge to like know to make a better, more informed ethical decision?
Whew, we're are you a big Sam Harris fan?
You know what? I in the middle on him. You know.
So okay, we just kind of like pivoted hardcore into another area. But the crux of my argument there, no, that's okay. So the crux of my argument there is that you have ises and you have oughts in society, right? You have ises are scientific facts. You have like
Yes.
you are 6 foot whatever. You are a white male. You are whatever, right? A house is 2 stories. Like we have
Like
scientific
qualitative
facts.
and quantitative things.
Sure, yeah, we've got scientific facts that are ises, and then we have oughts, right? People ought not to murder one another. People ought not to steal from each other. Right? These are moral compulsions that we feel in society, right?
Yes.
And my argument usually, if I'm having a philosophical discussion, especially a discussion on ethics, is usually that science can never give us oughts. So a scientist might be able to tell us like this is when a baby's heart starts beating. This is when a baby's brain starts functioning. This is when a baby can feel pain, or a fetus or whatever, right? A scientist might be able to tell us.
I could not disagree with you more, Destiny.
Okay, wow.
Let's think about this in a certain way.
huge-
Why is it unethical to kill a puppy?
Because we of a society have made the ethical, or we are of the ethical consensus that puppies are worthy of moral consideration.
You don't. Well, all right. I want you. Why would you personally not kill a puppy?
I'm a really bad. This is a bad question for me. Find a different example. I don't care about
All right,
animals,
no,
so I don't care
my
if
point
dogs get killed or
is
not.
that a lot of times we value like you wouldn't want to like an animal to be tortured because it feels pain. So you
Sure.
wouldn't want to do. So that is sort of a quantitative. That is sort of a scientific thing.
Okay,
so
wait,
that's
wait,
why
wait,
like,
wait. So
you have no problem cutting
So you have
down
to
a tree.
You got to be really, really careful here, right? So the scientific part is that the puppy can feel pain. That is
Yes.
an is. Now, but the idea that you should not hurt the puppy because it can feel pain, that is a philosophical ought. Science can't, or I invite you to tell me.
No, however,
how does science tell
cannot-
us you
it's
can't do
harder
it?
to come up with that ought if you do not have the prerequisite knowledge that is the is.
Well, of course, yeah, you need ises to form oughts, of course. Otherwise, you would be a formless blob floating in nothing. But
So doesn't that make sense that a scientist who's very well versed on a subject would be able to make a more informed and ethical decision than a normal person?
I guess I can kind of see. So let me try to set up a preferable example to you. So let's say that we're arguing that fetuses shouldn't be able to be aborted if they can feel pain, right? And your argument would be that the scientist is able to better make this decision because the scientist knows exactly when the fetus feels pain, whereas the layman might not. Like an example like that is kind of what you're saying?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, I guess in those circumstances, I could see a scientist being able to better make a decision of exact moral consideration or whatever, like what should be morally considerable. However, the determination that pain is something that should be avoided, that is a 100% philosophical assertion that has to be determined outside of the scientist field of expertise, right? That science might be able to give you a more exact
Well, I agree
but they
that
won't
I
give
agree
an
that
ought.
you can make general rules without the ises.
Mhm.
Apply those general rules to a certain situation. You need the is.
Yeah, you always need the is, of course. But the ought is coming from a non-scientific position always. The ought is never coming from a scientific position. Unless
I
you
agree, but like moral rules are useless unless you can apply them.
Sure. To an
So
is,
therefore,
yeah.
the is always going to be essential.
Yeah, of course. But again, like the scientist is more just a tool to measure something. He's not giving you
I
what
see what
should
you're
be
saying.
measured, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Sure. So again, like, or you can get, if you think you can give me a specific example, like, feel free to do so, where a scientist can use some sort of measurement to determine what is morally acceptable or what you should be morally compelled to do.
Oh, well, when I was just going to start this, my original comparison was going to be like, oh, it's morally acceptable to cut down a tree because it doesn't feel pain, but you can't chop off a puppy's head because it does. That was sort of the.
Oh, sure. But then why should the pain be avoided, right? That's an ought.
Yeah,
the scientist can't
that
tell you,
I
right?
agree that comes from.
Sure.
But since you've already like established a lot of the moral rules have already been established, like I think that isn't really relevant if you're having a discussion, because I don't think anyone is going to dispute that it is immoral to make something feel unnecessary pain.
I mean, it depends.
So
but
if we set that aside, isn't it primarily the is that we need to be concerned about?
yeah, it can be if the ought is solved, then sure. But typically, in most of the issues that I talk about, the ought usually isn't solved. Like when we're talking about abortion, I don't think that ought has been solved at all, or there are still extreme disagreements over it.
Did you ever figure out that answer to the kidney problem or whatever?
Yeah, I guess so. The way that I view it is, I think that I wish I had this link. There's a link to the Plato website or Plato. Sorry, fuck, not Plato. There's some like there's some philosophy thing where there's like a huge write up on the difference between like allowing versus doing harm and whatnot.
Yes.
These issues are all very murky, and it's hard to talk about these at length because they're so insanely hypothetical. But like, if I was walking on the street or something, or I'll say if a person is walking on the street and they are told by somebody that their kidney needs to be hooked up to somebody else for 9 months to save their life or whatever, I think that person has, can say no, and there's no moral culpability or anything there. But if you were to wake up,
I completely disagree.
Okay, well, that's really scary. We can dig into that. I don't think you'll agree with that after 5 minutes. But hold on. But like, if you were to wake up and you were already attached to somebody, I think that that's a different action there to unplug yourself and walk away. I view those as two separate things. I'm not sure in terms of what's good or bad. I know that I wouldn't do it. I don't know if I would expect another person not to. Like, if I woke up and I was attached to somebody, I don't know if I could pull the plug knowing that it would kill that person. But I wouldn't agree to be in that position. But if I wasn't, right, if that makes sense, it's kind of a... Yeah.
No, but it is exactly the same. This is exactly the same. I don't think it matters. You're still committing. You're still just. It's an inconvenience versus another human's life.
Okay, so yeah, sure, but so like here's Okay, so here's the problem. I think I know the answer to this. Are you familiar with the...
like pragmatically, obviously you can't like ask another person to do that, but morally and ethically, I think it's incredibly black and white.
Sure. So are you familiar with the trolley problem?
Yes, of course.
So you probably pulled the lever, right, to kill one person instead of 4 people?
Yes.
Okay. Would you expect everybody? So I think an important part of morals is you should expect other people to follow them. I don't know if you necessarily agree with this.
Yeah, that's a maxim. I'm well aware.
Okay. Ooh, I didn't even know that, but okay. So let's say that you are so you would expect everybody to pull the lever in that circumstance, then, right? For your moral system?
Yes, I would.
Okay. So then maybe you know the answer to this. I'm curious. So a doctor walks up to you today and he says he needs to kill you because your organs can save 9 other people. How do you possibly tell that doctor no? Or do
I don't.
You sacrifice yourself
on a moral basis? I cannot possibly make the argument that I should live.
Then why?
And I don't think anybody could.
Why wouldn't you go to the hospital right now and offer yourself up as a sacrifice for organs?
Because I'm a selfish, immoral fucker, like we all are.
Huh. Okay.
But that doesn't make the action like that's obviously the moral thing to do. To plug yourself in and save the other person because it's an inconvenience to yourself.
Gotcha. I guess like I can only attack your position, I guess, via ad hominem then, that you're morally inconsistent. Well, I guess like how can you
I don't think I'm morally inconsistent. I just acknowledge that I am selfish.
Sure, but if we adhere to the earlier maxim that everybody else will adopt your moral system the way that you do, doesn't your moral system kind of crumble on itself if everybody can't be expected to act in that way?
I see what you're saying. You kind of hit me with the 1-2 there, my bad. I guess the point is, like, if I were to create a utopia, then I would have all of the people follow these hypothetical rules. However, pragmatically, because humans are essentially like selfish and hedonistic, I cannot possibly expect me or anybody else to follow these rules. But I still think that just it's the moral thing to do would be to inconvenience yourself to save another human being.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
I mean, I agree with the inconvenience, but self-sacrifice is a pretty big one. I'm not sure.
Well, it's like that sort of thing. Would you kill yourself to like save 1 million people or something like that?
1 million people? I mean, I would have to. I would say so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
But there's
that is the like that. It might be an overblown situation, but it's the same sort of thing. Like, wouldn't that be immoral if you just like saved yourself and left all those people to die?
For the 1 million people example one?
I don't really think it matters on the number.
Well, it kind of does.
Unless it's a 1-to-1. Unless it's a 1-to-1, I don't think it really matters.
Sure.
Like if you know.
Yeah,
I don't think it fundamentally changes the scenario whether it's like 10 people or 20 people.
I think that there is a difference between being in a scenario that could wind up with you getting killed versus putting yourself into a scenario that will guarantee you, like, this is like with the these get into, I guess I haven't really thought about these topics, so I'm kind of spitballing this a little bit, but like I think there's a difference between 4 people standing on a track versus 1 person entering a track and putting himself into a situation where he wouldn't have otherwise been killed, versus the other 4 people that are going to be killed. Like, I think those are kind of different. I think that there's like a different moral consideration there, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, that's interesting, because like that's sort of dives into things, because like I don't think that those people necessarily, their lives are inherently less valuable because they're doing something stupid.
Yeah, I'm not saying that their lives are less valuable. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a deontologist here. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not sure. Putting yourself, putting yourself into a circumstance where you're guaranteed to die to save another person. That's like, that just seems like such an extraordinary thing.
I agree.
That, like, yeah, I'm not sure if I would expect any other person to do that. I'm not sure.
That's exactly what I'm saying, but I still think they would be acting immoral.
Sure. Well, I guess my goal would be that if I recognize, so when I construct like ethical systems, my goal would be that if I recognize that there is something that I would never expect a human to be able to do, that I would exclude that from my moral system, because there would be no pragmatic value to my system if it would never be reasonably adhered to, right?
Well, I don't know. I've just viewed, like, I think morals are supposed to be like a perfect set of principles, you know, that will result the best. Well, if you have a moral system, it should be a perfect set of principles that will do nothing but like improve society.
Yeah, but you'd have to be so like that. What you just said was like, that's a really weighted statement. When you say improve society, that has to be like unpackaged a lot, right?
And this is the sort of like the greatest good for the greatest many.
Yeah, this is kind of like
utilitarianism.
Yeah, the hardcore utilitarianism. But like, for instance, like, so like let's look at the trolley problem, right? We can look at it in a different light. Okay, so you say that you would push 1 person in front of a train to save 4 people because the utility that provides to society is obvious, right? You're sacrificing 1 to save 4. This is an easy call for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like, some people would argue, so you might say that, well, we would do this because it quote unquote improves society, but another person might look at your word improve there and they would go, well, in this society, you've made it permissible to sacrifice 1 person against their consent to save any arbitrary number of people. This is a massive what's the opposite of improve?
Detriment to society?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. This is a massive detriment to society, right? Now your
philosophy
I
would just disagree with that.
No, yeah, sure. And you can, but you have to argue over what you mean by improve there, right? Because then the non-utilitarianist would argue, maybe a deontologist would argue, like, well, you've sacrificed somebody against their consent in a situation where they wouldn't have otherwise been in harm's way. Well, now you've actually hurt society significantly by doing that. You haven't improved it at all, you know?
I think an easy way to measure it is that just simple math. 4 lives is more valuable than 1.
Well, yeah, but that's not necessarily the only thing that's happened here. What you've essentially done is you've constructed a moral system where it's okay for somebody to destroy the life of 1 person with or without their consent to save the life of another person, right? So
I think we operate under a pretty similar system somewhat.
Not at all. Exactly. No, definitely not.
No, but like, think about it. Think about like self-defense laws.
Yeah, well, those are different. No. Self-defense is different because you're taking somebody that has already aggressed against you, and you are, defending yourself against them, right? But but that person.
Or like, even if like if you see someone that's, or if someone was trying to like kill my brother, for example, and I shot them, then that is essentially the same thing, right?
No, not at all. Because this person has made a choice, right? This person has made a choice to try to commit an action where he fully understands that one of the consequences might be, that he is going to be killed. This person has made a decision that has wound him up with potentially being killed by another person, whereas the person pushed from the train tracks doesn't, right? If so the ways that you explore potential flaws in morality is you try to find you construct a hypothetical to test the kind of the limitations of your moral system.
Thought
right?
Experiments and whatnot.
Yeah. So for your moral system, right, here's one that I would find. Okay, let's say that there is let's say that you go to a hospital and 5 people have newly born children, and let's say that 3 or 4 of those children have have deficiencies in their bodies that could lead to life-threatening circumstances, and the sacrifice of your single child could very easily cure all 4 of these children. Let's say it's guaranteed, right? In your world, where you have constructed a moral system that makes the trolley solution obvious, where one person is sacrificed to save 4, in this world, the hospital takes your child, executes it, and then distributes the organs to the other 4 children in a perfectly utilitarian sense. Now, this is something where obviously the parents of the one child would not be okay, right, with this kind of a system, right?
Well, being moral is not easy all the time, you know?
Sure, but like people would argue...
that's the thing about utilitarianism.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's easy or not, but it's for the greater good.
Sure. But there are people that would argue that they wouldn't want to live in any type of society where the greater good could involve the sacrifice of them or their family at any point in time to serve the needs of any other person, right? I'm not, and we're arguing, these are like, this is borderline axiomatic, right? Like, I'm not telling you that you are wrong, right? Because I can't tell you that you're wrong if this is your view. I'm just saying, like, these are some of the ways that people would kind of, or this is why I would never consider myself a utilitarianist.
Well, what is your sort of, like, are you more Kantian and...
I don't even know. I don't study any philosophy.
Okay.
I've heard some people say it. Basically, I believe in like reciprocating the golden rule. I guess is like essentially what I believe in. I think I've heard of enlightened self-interest or whatever. But basically, I do for you what you can do for me, and then I construct all of my morals around that. So whatever rights I demand for myself, I demand for other people, and I hope that those other people demand rights for me because they want those rights demanded for themselves. Because I don't think any one person is inherently better than any other person. So that's kind of how I construct my moral system. So like
sort of Confucius. Like, I guess
possibly, sure. So like for my solution, I guess in my moral system for the trolley problem would be, I would consider it to be unethical to push one person in front of a train to save 4 other people, but I think that person should be morally compelled to do what he can to save the 4 other people. I don't know if that would involve self-sacrifice or not. That's a pretty fucking big decision. But yeah. And
I guess just my argument against that would be that you're just you're being selfish in the fact that you're valuing your own moral, the common good.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. But again, like, remember I told you, like, up until 2 or 3 years ago, I was very much a libertarian. So like, I believe that humans are inherently very selfish. So I construct
definitely.
Yeah. So I try to construct my moral system around the selfishness of most humans, and I would hope that moral system would take advantage of that, right? So again, like, I don't
think. Yeah, but if you truly believe that humans are entirely hedonistic and selfish, then there can't really be a moral system, because they're just going to constantly do evil things to better themselves.
Yeah, so the goal with my moral system would be to make it so that you wouldn't do evil things because you don't want other people to do evil things to you. So, for instance, let's say that my neighbor my neighbor has something that a 49-inch plasma screen, or I guess it's LCD or whatever, that I really want. Like, I'm gonna walk over there and steal that because I'm hedonistic. But in actuality, because I'm hedonistic and I don't want my other neighbor to walk over and kill me and steal it, I'm not going to steal that thing from my neighbor. And to take it a step further, if I see somebody breaking into the house of my neighbor stealing his TV, I'm gonna call the police or do what I can to help him, because if somebody does it to me, I expect him to act in the same way. I want him to be looking out for my best interests as well, right? That's kind of like how I compose my shit.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's sort of the basis for society, I guess, in a way.
To some extent, yeah. If you had social contract memes or whatever, yeah.
Oh, you're not a fan of? You don't like social contract theory?
I don't actually know. Some people, every time I get into an argument on philosophy, I get a bunch of people emailing me telling me that I am a certain thing. So I've had some people tell me that I'm very big on social contract, and then I've had other people email me and they go, "Destiny, that's not the social contract at all. Don't say that." So I don't actually know.
Oh, I thought maybe you seem pretty well informed on a lot of this philosophical stuff. I thought maybe you take philosophy classes.
No, I wish I had. I took a psych class in high school, and it was one of the best classes I ever took. I never got to take philosophy, though. But I've had, like, so many conversations on it that I can pick up some stuff, so.
All right, well. Let me think. Is there anything else that I said that I wanted to talk to you about? Briefly, could you just refresh my memory on your position on transgender people and stuff like that?
I'm really not there right now. You're
not trying to?
Well, like, I'm just, this is a very confusing thing for me. For me personally, so I'm very anti-group everything. I hate all groups. I'm very anti-culture. I'm anti-nationalism. I'm anti every kind of group. So like for me personally, I don't identify strongly with any group of people, and I consider
Okay.
gender to be one of those groups. When I think of myself, or when I construct my own, like if I were to construct like a description of myself, I don't even know if I would use the term male or white. Like these just aren't groups that I strongly identify with.
Are you Yeah, but are you claiming that your gender and your sex has no impact on your identity?
It has an impact on definitely the way society views me. I'm not going to deny that. But I don't personally. It's obviously this is impossible for me to really say because I haven't experienced life as a woman. But like I don't strongly identify as a male. Like if I was a woman, I think I would be more or less the same person. Like me being male isn't an important part of my identity to me personally. I don't really care that I'm male. I don't really care that I'm white. These just aren't important things to me. And I always advocate for other people to not identify with groups and whatnot. But transgender identity seems to be the ultimate form of kind of group identity, where like I so strongly identify with a gender that I actually need to have surgery to change myself to identify with this gender. And that's something that I personally don't feel that at all. So it's really hard for me. But I don't know if my way of thinking is a good way of thinking, or I'm sorry, is even a realistic way of thinking. And I might even be engaging in some level of self-deception where maybe being male is more important to me than I even realize. So it's really hard to say, you know?
Well, are you like alleging that it's sort of like just a mental sort of disorder in a way?
I don't know, because gender and sex are so fucking complicated. I don't know. I mean, there are very real, like, scientific measurements of gender dysphoria, right? Where you can measure the differences between the male brain and the female brain, and transgender people tend to be wired more to the other gender. So I mean, I'm sure there seems to be, or at least from what I've read, there seems to be some very real scientific basis for it. But society also overrides so much of what we understand, about gender roles and sex and everything too. So I'm not sure.
I don't know. I've always just thought that like gender doesn't fucking matter at all, at least in the way that people are and should be treated in terms of rules and laws and that sort of thing.
Sure. So like this is one of the big problems that I have with making this argument, and this is one of the big reasons why I left the whole libertarian train of thought, is because I would make statements like that and I would hear a lot of people agreeing with me, but then I later found out in life that people don't actually agree with me, they're just being bigoted. So like I would say things like so for instance, growing up I would always argue in favor of the use of like the N-word or faggot or whatever, right? And I would say like I'm not arguing in favor of the use of it, but I would say things like these words aren't that big of a deal, they're just words, they shouldn't bother you. And
I would agree.
Sure, maybe, I don't know, maybe you would, but I know that a lot of people listening to me agreed with that, and especially a lot of white people like love that kind of thought. They oh yeah, Destiny, you're so right, 100%, I totally agree, yeah, 100%, totally right, and I felt good, and I thought that everybody agreed. But then what I noticed was that any single time any event or anything ever happened that attacked white people, these people would fucking freak the fuck out, would absolutely flip shit. And then what I started to discover after a while was, well, hold on, these people don't actually agree with anything I'm saying. They're just agreeing with what I'm saying because it favors them right now. Right? Like, so for instance, like, here, I can give you a million one-off examples, but like, here's one, like gamer culture, right? Gamers are very tough. We talk a lot of shit. Gamers, we've had keyboards and we've been fighting on the internet our whole lives. Nothing you say is going to bother us, right? Gamers say this shit all the time, right? Jimmy Kimmel makes a few skits and they're like the most heavily downvoted videos in like all of fucking YouTube history, right? Or look at the one Josh Gavin dude, I think that's his name, on the Rebel Media, where he makes a video about how playing video games is for losers. And like people showed up and thumbs down the video so much. People are so fucking mad. And it's like, okay, well, wait a second. So you didn't actually mean that gamers are like the most thick-skinned people in the world. You were just saying that because nobody was making fun of you at that specific point in time. That was my big problem with a lot of those types of thoughts, was that people that seemed to be in agreement with me were actually only agreeing with me because it was convenient at that point in time.
But wait, so did you sort of abandon a set of principles that you had just because the majority of people that had those principles were assholes?
It's not that I abandoned the principles, it's that I have a more pragmatic view of them. So for instance, I don't think that I still believe that in them in my core. Like, I don't think that words should bother you. I don't think that certain words should have a huge detrimental impact on your psyche or your mentality or whatever, but I understand that they do. They just do. It's just the way the society works, and it's just the way a lot of people work, and that for me to pretend that they don't for everybody, I think that and I'll jerk myself off a little bit, I think I'm relatively unique in the level of individuality that I have, partially because my job relies on it. I have to be a unique individual, So I think that expecting everybody else to uphold the same standards that I do insofar as being harassed or whatever is not fair. I don't think everybody's capable of doing necessarily the same things that I am in terms of dealing with all of that. And then I notice when I look around that people aren't, right? Another thing that I point to is a lot of times white people say to black people, like, well, it's okay, you know, that all of the heroes in media and all of that shit, it's changed recently, right? But all of them are white. Like, that shouldn't be a big deal. And then when the new FIFA game gets released, like, the third most upvoted comment in the thread was, I can't believe the main character is black. How am I supposed to play this RPG now? And it's like, dude, really? You've been telling black people this your whole fucking life. Like, why? So, like, it just seemed like everybody was a fucking hypocrite, you know? Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
I just feel like I think anybody could attack. Like, of course, if you're attacking someone personally, it makes sense that they could get offended. But I don't think anybody could say anything about a group that I'm a part of that would offend me. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and then like this is something that I have to be careful of too. Is that like, and we'll get back to a little white privilege a little bit. Like, there's nothing really anybody can say to attack you. If you are a white straight male and somebody walks into the room and sees you, there's not really much they can say, right? you're like, right, in terms of like stereotypes, like what are they gonna do? Call you a cracker? Like, nobody really cares, right? Every group that you're a part of has always been like the mainstream represented in society. Like, there's nothing that
I don't know.
anybody...
I'm a bit of a fucking nerd.
Well, sure, but they would have to learn something about you, right? To get that. That's the whole point, right? Whereas a woman, right? I've got 50 million things like, you know, like, well, I hope you're not on your period. Or you're gonna be real emotional. Like, oh, like, what are you doing in here? I thought this was a room for smart people. Like, shouldn't you be in the kitchen? Like, there's a million different sexist comments I can make right off the bat for a woman. There's a million different things I could say to a Mexican, to any Hispanic, to a black person, just based on the way they look, right? That would be hurtful. That would be genuinely hurtful comments, and most people would interpret as hurtful. But if you're a white straight man, like, I mean, again, like, what's somebody gonna say to you? Like, honky? Like, you're like, laugh it off. You don't care. The fact that you say, like, well, I'm a nerd, you know, like, goes to show, like, they would have to actually get to know you to say something to actually hurt your feelings, you know?
Yeah, I get what you're... I agree.
Sure.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Part of the, like, kind of the example that I give is that when I got fired from a casino job that I had quit school to work at. So I got really fucked early on in my life after college. And for a period in time when I was doing after I got fired from that job and then worked my carpet cleaning job, I was very, very, very poor and had a lot of financial problems in my life. Really, really bad financial problems. And there were things in my life, like the way that I had to live my life then, kind of gave me some, I don't want to say insights, but insights into like what it's like to live as somebody with severe financial difficulty. And one thing that I noticed when I listened to other people talk about it is it's really easy to pick out people that are making shit up, that are just bullshitting about what it's like to be poor, right? It's very easy when I listen to somebody like, okay, you've never been poor in your life. Like, fuck off, dude. Like, nobody does this thing. Nobody actually lives like this. Like, this is fucking retarded. Like, you don't know, right? So, but
Yeah.
And I noticed that it's really hard for people to empathize with being really poor, right? You'll get people like Martin Shkreli saying things like, well, if you want health insurance, just all you have to do, like, oh, this is really funny, really, really funny. Martin Shkreli was talking about health insurance and how it wasn't a big problem in the United States because, like, if you wanted health insurance and you were working at Starbucks, all you need to do is work 60 hours a week. 20 hours of overtime would get you like $15, $16, $17 an hour, and you would very easily be able to afford that and more, and you'd be doing really good in life. And it was funny that Martin Shkreli said that because any service level employee absolutely knows that, one, it's a struggle to get scheduled for even 28 or 32 hours in any low level position because a lot of companies will mandate that you're a full-time employee at that point, and your boss doesn't want to give you full-time status because it includes other benefits. So the idea that he's suggesting that any like service level employee is going to pull 20 hours of overtime at any job ever is like, that was like hilariously fucking stupid, right? Like, I knew like right off the bat that he was like totally talking out his ass, you know? I'm sorry, but the reason why I bring that up is because I have that experience, and because I know that unless somebody's actually been there, it's really hard for them to understand it. I try to be really careful when I talk about like trans issues or racial issues. I don't want to sit here and say like, well, I don't think being a black person would be that big of a deal because I haven't been a black person, so I have to be really, really perceptive to the people that have had those experiences because I know how annoying it is to listen to people talk about experiences with poverty that they haven't experienced, so I don't want to do the same with issues of race or gender identity or whatever, right? Whew, sorry, okay.
No, I disagree in the sense that I think it's much more like if I'm having a debate with someone, I don't like what is true is going to take priority over whether they are personally offended. And I'm going to speak to statistics and facts, not like, oh, I'm sorry if you are the one-off example of some bad thing that's happened to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're 100% right about everything, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't disagree. And I think
So,
that I
like,
think that liberals are wrong on a lot of these types of fucking issues. 100%. The demonization of white people and everything. I think that the hardcore left is to blame for people like Trump, or for people like the huge like alt-right gender identity, or not gender, but like the white identity movements. I think a lot of that is the fault of people on the left.
Yeah, political correctness is I'm not a fan of it, so.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you mean. I don't know about that, dude. Like, that's another topic that I used to say a lot, where it's like, okay, like,
Dude, I feel like Trump won so many people off just because they are tired of getting yelled saying like by saying a guy was black. Like,
yeah,
I've
but
seriously
like,
been yelled at by saying a guy's black instead of African American.
sure. So like, this might be true, but this is what I found. This goes back to my old libertarian days. This is what I found to be true, is that it is possible. I don't like political correctness, okay? I really don't. I like to speak. That's why when we talk, I say
It's
things like
fucking
black
retarded,
culture, right?
and I think it goes against what like the whole free speech and what America's about.
Yeah, sure. But I have to be careful, because when I say, like, I'm not a big fan of political correctness, like, 80% of the people that are jumping up to agree with me are probably going to be fucking racist, right? That's a big problem that I run into. When I say things like, I'm not a big fan of political correctness, a lot of people that jump are like, yeah, I agree, dude. Like, fuck black people and fuck spics. They need to get them out of our fucking country. Like, these
I
guys
feel like
are...
you keep
and it's like,
abandoning principles just because there are morons who also subscribe to principles.
it's not about abandoning principles. It's about recognizing the types of people that follow the things you say, and then recognizing the way that these things manifest in society. So, like, I will still advocate against PC culture. I don't think it's a good thing at all. But I'll be cognizant that a lot of the people that are against PC culture are probably the reason why PC culture exists, because these are literal racist people and shit that probably need to chill the fuck out with a lot of the shit that they say.
I don't know how much that is true, but
Sure. These are kind of anecdotal.
Yeah, I know
I'm
what
not
you're
gonna
saying.
lie. So,
all right, Destiny. I got to take off, but this was a very good discussion. I was glad that I got a hold of you, man.
yeah. Well, hey, I enjoyed talking to you, buddy. Be careful.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah.
Good luck with your
What did-
stream and everything.
What did you say your job was? You work at the state attorney?
District Attorney's Office.
What do you do there?
I'm a paralegal.
Oh, that's cool. Are you getting into
Yeah.
law? Is that what you want to do as a job, or?
Yeah, I actually just graduated high school, and my or I'm like I'm not like technically I work as an intern, but as a paralegal.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
It's a paid internship, but I basically do all the things a paralegals do. So yeah, and I'm on the pre-law track, and I
Alright.
love philosophy, political science. That's all my shit.
Cool.
All right, well, it's been great talking to you, man.
Yeah. Well, have fun, buddy.
Yeah, take care.
Hold on. Let me see if I can. Do we watch this video on stream? Hold on. This was so dumb.
We have a capitalist state of healthcare. It's a little bizarre. It's not. Some parts of it are really unhealthy. Some parts of it, that like a byproducts of it, are healthy. For example, we do have a pharma industry that makes a lot of money. That's a good thing. Thankfully, they can do lots of research on new medicines. Clearly, it is a bigger and bigger cost for Americans. I actually don't think it's a big problem. We're spending a lot less on things like tobacco. If you look at how much the average American spent on tobacco and alcohol 100 years ago, we've replaced a lot of that spending with spending on healthcare. It may feel to you like you're spending a lot on your healthcare, but you're replacing things like we used to spend a lot of money on clothing and food. A lot of that's changed with the times as we make more.
Wait, what? This argument is really bad too. Fuck. If you had money that you used to spend on tobacco and alcohol, right? This was money that you were spending on recreation. Whether that recreation was good or bad is irrelevant. That was money being spent on recreation. Now you're taking that money that you spent on recreation and you're spending it on the healthcare necessity. That shouldn't be a positive thing. Wait, what?
More money. The amount of money we spend on food isn't changing, but as a percentage, it's dropping dramatically because we're making more money. So if you look at it, healthcare costs aren't hurting Americans. It's just a shift in spending towards.
But a shift in what? But a shift in spending from recreation to necessity, that's a big deal. I'm not going to be able to find the video. Fuck, there was one, there was like a thing where he talked about healthcare where he was like, if you just work 20 hours of overtime at Starbucks, how you could afford like healthcare so much easier. And I thought it was like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Fuck. All right. Never mind. Okay. I still like Shkreli. He's a cool dude. Although he might be fucked, but we'll see, I guess. Are you going to play League anytime soon? Well, Game of Thrones is coming on now, so your party was disbanded? Oh my god. Oh my god, all this wood. What are we doing? This is the solution to all of our field problems. Holy shit, I'm about to fucking deforest this whole fucking map. Would you restrict access to a life-saving drug like Shkreli? I don't actually know if Shkreli did or not. I'm still not sure on that. I don't actually know if he did. I don't know enough about the ins and outs of that to really know if he did or not. Oh my god, all these trees. Oh, yes. Are you seeing this shit, Kyle? How fucking mad are you, Kyle? Oh my god, all this wood. Our trains are gonna run forever. Yes. I still haven't used any coal to fuel any of my trains, even in this factory of this size. Oh my god, yeah, there we go. Go. There's also an issue in the US with welfare cliffs that serve as a gate to increasing wealth. Your website link is teamliberty.org, so... But, yeah, I can believe this. I like the idea of scaling benefits that pay out based on how much you work. So, like, let's say, for instance, let's say that you earn $0. This is a total hypothetical system, right? But if you earned $0, you would get $10,000 a year in welfare. If you earned $10,000, you would get $5,000 a year in welfare. If you earned $15,000, you would get $2,500, right? It would kind of like taper off so that there weren't any of these like hard cliffs where like if I earn, although I don't even know if those exist right now, but like if they do like that, that would be like a more preferential system, I would say. In general, economists massively support expanding the EITC. Oh, that's the earned income tax credit, right? Yeah. I think I mentioned that to that kid, right? Yeah, that's probably a good one. Or at least every time I've heard of it, it seems to be a good hombre. I can't stream and have like Game of Thrones on, can I? The EITC doesn't help people who don't make any money. Rip. If you want to talk about UBI, it's strictly better than every other welfare program in existence. Is that actually true, or are you one of like just the huge UBI dick riders? People dick ride UBI like a motherfucker. Holy shit. Do I not have any turrets on me? No, I don't. Fuck. I shouldn't be disconnecting this. Fuck.
Excuse me, sir. That seat is for disabled people. What the fuck? My apologies. Didn't know you had severe autism.
This would have been like a million times funnier if he would have just said my apologies and left, I think. But okay. How do I get my robots to travel faster from the factory over here? I need you guys to come build this shit faster. How much longer this worker robot speed? Yo, get off my turret, you fucking bitch. Separate networks, the trains bringing... Hey, Proteus? Listen. Nobody cares about your separate networks, okay? Kill yourself. Look, here they come. Whoa. Go away. Stop. Kyle, have you made uranium rounds for us yet? Dude, stop. Get away from my shit. Wow. Thanks. This pseudo's gonna break soon, too. Oh, they're laying down turrets. Thanks, guys. Has anybody else gotten this Amazon TV channels shit? This is actually pretty fucking dank. What episode are we on next? We're on episode 4, right? Wait, so is Ice really trying to bang a 16, 15-year-old? Is this like 100% confirmed? What? Rip. You're gonna love this episode? I've already read the synopsis, fuck you. This is all I've come to expect from Game of Thrones. We're just watching it for the memes now, okay? Proteus, do you guys? How far did you guys go on these fucking upgrades? This shit is. I think this will be the last one I get for maybe for this entire run. This is ridiculous, dude. 128,000 space science packs. Holy shit. Have you played Path of Exile? No. I shouldn't have queued up these trees for destruction yet. My robots are all gonna run and kill themselves. How much science per second? Were you guys up to 1,000 science per second, Proteus? I guess you guys had your shit crazy modded too, so fuck you guys. Or I'm sorry, 1,000 per minute. Wait. No, it's 1,000 per hour, right? No. What is the science? It's 1K per minute, isn't it? Yeah, 1K per minute. Your final, what was like your red, blue, all that like science per minute? Like what was it up to? Okay, I'm sorry, this was a mistake.
Then he didn't, but then like I guess I don't know. I ended up with like 1,000 people in my stream from him, and then he DM'd me, and then he was like, "Oh, you're 17, shit, like gotta go." And then I was like 18 6 days after that, yeah. And so that was all to VidCon, and then like
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for GOT. Don't I have a car somewhere? Search for a car. I've got a car somewhere on the map. I don't know where it is. Oh my god, not only fucking oh, there we go. Get away from me. No. Don't take my wood. Oh, look, I made a whole factory for my green chips and my red chips and my blue chips. But I'm trying to get it stable, but it's really hard. I need so many resources. Holy shit. I think this has actually, like, become stable, though. Like, I think these boxes are all filling up. Oh, yeah. We got a lot of copper, plastic, and green chips. Oh, the blue's doing. I was thinking of adding another row to the blue shit. Yeah, these are just making constantly. Adding another row of blue chip makers right here. There's a place called Boys City near you? What? Yeah, you're talking about Boys Town? Fuck.
She was licking my nuts, eating my skin.
Nice.
It's not right. It's just not right.
How was Rucka in person? I didn't actually realize that Rucka made songs. I didn't know that he was anybody on YouTube. I thought that he was just like a Maddox co-host guy. I didn't realize anything. I didn't know that at all. I felt really bad when I looked it up afterwards. I didn't get to say anything to him at all. Or I didn't really talk to him much at all.
You normally ask people what they do when you meet them. Did you not have time?
Well, no, I just assumed he was Matt. Why would I ask him what he does when I see he's Maddox's like co-host? I thought that's like what he did. Why don't you go for the blood in debates? Because I'm trying not to be as mean of a person, okay?
Yee.
Yee. What am I doing? I don't even know what I'm driving around for. I thought it was annoying how I kept interjecting, shitting on Maddox, like it wasn't even funny, I just wanted discussion. Well, the problem was that Maddox was supposed to be arguing against the point that I was bringing up, but Maddox seemed to be in agreement with most of what I was saying, so... Rucka was just irritated that there wasn't really a debate going on, which I mean is true. I think Rucka served that side pretty well. Oh, Game of Thrones is up. Alright, I love you guys. I'll be back in an hour.